Yeah, if it's too high, I don't want it to like peak too much, right? Like that could be an issue.
Yeah.
But
like I had, it was right after I bought the Blue Yeti. I had the settings set, but for some reason they got reset, and it went from like 15 or 20 all the way up to like 80 or 90, whatever the default setting was, and it made it really, not clippy, but distorted.
Right. If I do this, do I pet? Can I pet him? Can I pet Egg? Am I doing this right?
Oh, is that? I did not mean to do that.
Am I am I petting him right? I'll just wait for the stream to catch up to see if that works.
Not clippy, but distorted.
Right. Let's see. Oh, I missed him. I missed him just a little bit more in the middle here. There we go. Just he's good Egg. He's good Egg.
The best of eggs.
The best egg.
Hopefully we are around the same volume. We see Natsu, one of our great Patreon supporters and a member of Daniel's channel.
Yes.
Would you like me to set Egg? I sent you Egg so you could put Egg in places. 6 hours to edit frame by frame.
You can send me Egg. I will take. Just gonna hold him here. I'm just holding the Egg.
I'll put him next to the chat.
Oh, okay. You're taking my Egg away. Oh,
well, someone needs to keep an eye on it to make sure that there's
no, that's fine. This is fine.
Yeah. So no, seriously, it took me. I was tired of editing a normal video, so I just opened up a new thing, and somehow it ended up with Egg, and I did the crop thing with the crop tool, frame by frame on each thing, because I tried like green screening the background out, but the background was the same color as Egg, so you couldn't do it. And that's why, like, on his legs, especially when he jumps, it's all wobbly wobbly.
Right. I get you. It still looks good though, actually.
Yeah, it looked really wobbly wobbly when I had him, like when it was full screen, but when it's shrunken down, it's less noticeable. Yeah, so I guess we're ready to start. Is everybody else ready?
Yeah, it's just you and me, so I'm ready.
Cool. I guess I'll wait for the drink. All right, so first off, I want to apologize to everyone for the wait. We're starting about 22 minutes late here. That was because initially, well, to start, we usually don't do the podcasts on this day anymore. We moved to Thursdays, the best of days, but that is taken by another holiday, so we decided to do it a day ahead, and originally it was 4 of us. That got cut down to 3, and that got cut down to 2, and we were giving some time for the third person to come in because they mentioned that they might be able to come in depending on some things, so we were trying to give her some time to join. And then I had to set up everything for 2 people to stream. So here are Daniel and I, but next week it should be all 4 of us, as well as the voice of 𝗏𝗏 and Yunobo, and that one shopkeeper in the new Spider-Man game, Joe Hernandez. And he's also in Transformers and some other really cool stuff too. I think
he's in a lot, actually.
Yeah.
If you scroll about his IMDb, it's a pretty impressive list.
I want to say JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, but I don't know if that's Sean.
No, that's Sean. That is Joe. He's in Joe's. Joe is in JoJo's. I think he's Pesci. I think he mentioned that before.
Nice. So
if I'm wrong, maybe I'll just check real quick. But keep going, and I'll double check.
Yeah, the topics for today's podcast is going to be some recent rumors or leaks about the Game Awards and Breath of the Wild 2 and some other Zelda stuff. And I made a video about it a couple of days. Yeah, yesterday it actually uploaded, and it got a lot of really wonderful comments on it. So thank all of you for the support. But that was a video just giving the information and examples and statements from Nintendo and their past history of doing similar stuff, and then giving my thoughts. But this time I thought maybe it would be interesting for Daniel and everyone else to give their thoughts, which is also Daniel.
Yes, Pesci and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That's right.
And then
IMDb is blinding me. All right, go on.
Second up, we have one of Daniel's favorites. We have some rumors concerning Metroid Prime 1, I believe. And then Nintendo's plans on fixing that annoying Ocarina of Time thing that everyone's been complaining about, as well as any other negative. I actually haven't really seen any other negativity except for Ocarina of Time. Have you? Like you said, you played through Star Fox, right?
I played through Star Fox. I didn't have any problems at all. But Yoshi's Story I also was playing through, and it seems fine. No problem there. So I really think it's Ocarina of Time is the problem child of this collection of games. Yeah. Oh,
interesting. Wow. So after that, we have a bit of some release windows, not necessarily release dates, and info on the Mario movie, a new Mario game, Breath of the Wild 2, and Nintendo's finally confirmed, well, not really finally, there's a video I'm working on now that goes through dozens of I almost said emails. It goes through dozens of announcements and interviews where various people at Nintendo, usually it's whoever the president is at the time, talks about like next gen hardware that they're experimenting with or working on. Half the videos about the Switch successor, and the other half is about a 3DS successor that they used to mention a lot, but has since gone quiet on. And I think Daniel and I covered it on an older episode of the podcast, or maybe it was before we even began the podcast. But we have Nintendo's long-awaited confirmation on that. We have another leak or rumor about games from Rare, who Nintendo used to be partnered with, coming to the Nintendo Switch. Whether that is the N64 games or newer games, like possibly the HD enhanced versions of Banjo-Kazooie, which I would really like. So who knows what's going to happen for that. And then finally, we're going to end the news topics with our Game Awards predictions. And then for about 5 to 7 minutes, we have a quick game of Zelda trivia. This episode of the podcast should go by fairly quickly if I could ever shut up, because there are only 2 of us as opposed to 3 or 4 of us. So yeah, let's see how this goes. And of course, if you have any questions, preferably either ask them in chat and tag either Daniel or I so we can see the questions, so we can answer them towards the end of the podcast. If you have a question that you want answered immediately, or a topic, news story, whatever that you would like us to discuss, then you can super chat. You can also join our Discord. A link to it is in the description. And we have a chat room that's specifically for people to post all of the questions that they may have. And that would actually be where you would want to post if you have questions that you would like us to ask Joe when he comes on next week.
You can also send it in the mail, or walk over here and shove it in the mail slot. Or you can climb on my balcony and write your questions in lipstick on the window, but make sure you write it backwards so that I can read it inside.
Yes.
Those are all good methods for getting your questions to us.
But concerning the mail, I am moving this Friday, so that might be a weird case of lost mail there. And anyways, yeah, we'll end it with the Zelda mailbag, and yeah, I guess we can start.
But first
yeah,
things first.
yeah. What's
We
that?
have a super chat
Oh, cool.
from the king of super chats himself, Taker610. Breath of the Wild sequel name confirmed. The Legend of Zelda. No spoilers. That's gonna be the title. You're right, Taker.
Isn't that what? Was it Bill that said that?
No spoilers.
No, he was like, I could tell you the title for Breath of the Wild 2, but it would be a spoiler. And I'm like, yes, often the title is based off of something very important related in the game, whatever, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, all that stuff. But we're going to end up knowing the title of the game anyways before it comes out and before we make it to whatever it would be that it possibly could be spoiling.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's kind of like one of those what do we call them? Not a pressy statement, but like
PR sort of thing.
Yeah, like a non-answer to where it's like, no, we have absolutely no plans to be working on Skyward Sword HD. It would be impossible to add traditional controls to it, while they're literally paying Tantalus millions of dollars to make it. So yeah, starting out, do you want to do the first piece of news? Read it in your voice.
In my voice? Are you sure that's what you want?
Yeah, or I bet you could do a good 𝗬𝗵𝗲. I'm sure that everyone watching would love to hear that.
I can't do it. I can't do it justice. So this first piece of news actually comes from and you I think you addressed this in a video recently, didn't you as well?
Yes, it was the video I posted yesterday.
Right. Well, this comes from 𝗵𝗲, who has a bit of a history of some pretty accurate leaks. Now, I don't know if I'm going to personally place all my faith in 𝗵𝗲, but I stay cautiously optimistic about everything she says. I assume it's a she. I might be wrong. I'm just gonna say they. I don't know what 𝗵𝗲's gender is. So they're an enigma leaker, anonymous person. But they posted on Twitter, the celebration for the 35th anniversary of the Legend of Zelda will continue at #TheGameAwards, and she posted a nice GIF of Link holding up the Triforce. Like nice little illustration. She followed this tweet up saying, given the follow-up to the tweet, I want to specify a couple of things. I don't currently know specific details about it, but here's what it could mean. Concert dedicated to the entire series, very likely, which actually, my own personal note, Jeff Keighley loves doing concerts and like big musical things at the Game Awards. He loves doing that. So that wouldn't surprise me. She also goes on trailer for the sequel to Breath of the Wild. That's, in my opinion, the best case scenario. Best case scenario, fingers crossed. Or she says collaborations with other games, which, to elaborate, 𝗵𝗲 does not elaborate, but I think like Monster Hunter, stuff like that, where we've had crossovers, collaborations.
That's what came to your mind?
Monster Hunter is what comes to mind from, like, they've done like Monster Hunter had a Zelda
I thought
crossover,
of
right?
stuff like Cadence of Hyrule.
Oh, Cadence. Oh. Well, I see collaborations with other games strikes me as like it's a game, another game already, and then it's like a crossover collaboration thing. Cadence of Hyrule, that's a good point though, is that because that is actually more like a crossover than, you know what, Cadence of Hyrule might be a better example, because Crypt of the Necrodancer was already its own IP, its own indie game.
It like did the indie version of Hyrule Warriors, where it combined Zelda with their game mechanics.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Hyrule Warriors is like still all Zelda property. Crypt of the Necrodancer is a really unique case because it's all like they still have their own character from Crypt of the Necrodancer in Cadence of Hyrule.
This is true.
So I wonder. Now you've got my brain percolating. Tetra in the chat says Animal Crossing. I could.
Well, that
when I read other like non-Nintendo games, but I would like that because they did the Mario thing.
Yeah, and back in all the way whenever they showed the Mario Animal Crossing DLC that came along with it. That was one of the first things that I was told about Zelda getting like crossover DLC for Animal Crossing.
Right. I would love that. Animal Crossing.
And
I would love.
They did say they had no more major or no more paid updates or something like that. They didn't say anything about small updates.
Yeah, they said the last major free content update. Small updates, I think, are still fair game. Absolutely. Another follow-up tweet, actually, from Samus Hunter. She says, I see very difficult, if not impossible, the announcement of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. I don't have any information about them, and that likely means that they don't have plans to market them. Also, we might get other Switch games updates / reveals like MH if we don't get news this month. MH is Monster Hunter, I think, right? I think is what she means. So, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess is not likely, according to Samus Hunter, which I agree with. We already got Skyward Sword this year. I don't think they're going to do another HD.
I think it's getting to about that time to where they're not worried about Skyward Sword sales. Because that was,
I guess they tease it, but they're not going to it's not going to go on sale by the end of this year.
Yeah,
I think that's the end of the year.
If they do have anything mentioning it, I could see it in the same vein of when 𝗟𝗚𝗔 teased Skyward Sword HD for the first time. When he was like, oh, you guys like that song? What about Skyward Sword or something like that?
Yeah, or it's like, I know what you're all thinking. Skyward Sword on Switch, right?
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, no, we didn't mean that. We're actually putting it on Switch. We're totally not. And then they actually announced it, and it came to Switch, and it was great. But
yeah, I could see a little tease like that. Like especially if they...
though,
yeah,
if 𝗟𝗚𝗔 just like said that off the cuff, and then like all of the marketing team were like, no, damage control. You know, he said a thing.
Actually, there was the next gen interviews and stuff that I was looking up to make videos coming out later this week or next week.
Right.
One of the things that mentions a like next generation version of the Switch was I forgot the word. It was I can't think of the specific word they used. A collaborative partner of Nintendo's. It was the CEO of the company who like Furukawa or someone mentioned something about a new console in development or that they were working on, and then the CEO dude ended up giving even more details on Twitter, and there was the article about it, and then when I went back to click on where the tweet came from, it was gone. So it's like even he felt the wrath of the Nintendo ninjas.
No one is spared from the ninjas.
Yeah, and he was like the CEO of one of Nintendo's partners. So,
oop.
Yeah.
Oop.
Anyways, what the first thing on this list, the concert. That's something they've always had. I think every Game Awards has had some sort of concert, just about.
Yeah. Jeff Keighley loves that stuff.
I think I want to say I remember God of War, but that may have been something else.
I'm not sure.
I know an E3 started with God of War music. I don't know about that. But yeah, like they have the Zelda Symphony they had going for a long time. And they re-recorded for... what game was it? Not Link's Awakening. No, okay, I know what I was thinking of. The huge Zelda box collection anniversary CD thing that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. They had like 5 discs of songs from throughout the Zelda series. If it's not tying into a specific game, then it could be tied in to just that, to where they're like, if you enjoyed this orchestrated music, you can go through and purchase literally every song that they've ever... because I don't think they've made a public announcement for it. Like, I hadn't seen it in any direct or tweet. I just literally found it on their website and was like, they have this huge box filled with songs from the entire series, and it's worded as if it's supposed to be marketed alongside Skyward Sword. But that's that goes towards the whole thing of like, Nintendo did have a 35th anniversary planned, but due to whatever reason they just spread it out through the entire year.
I don't get it. I hadn't heard about that even until you told me, and I was like, what? There's this whole box set? What? I was it's weird how much they didn't market it, you know? It just, yeah, it's weird.
But yeah,
very weird.
Concert, yes or no?
I see it as likely.
Yeah,
and I'm being cautiously optimistic, right? But I see it as likely.
I could see two situations. We get Zelda music, but in the form of Super Smash Bros. Celebration. Because I don't think that this might go a little bit into predictions, but I don't think, like, obviously, and I said this in the video, but obviously they're not going to announce a new Smash Bros. Game. But because the game is finally complete, at least we think it is, they could always add more stuff, who knows. But since it is complete for now, I think because it is the Game Awards and they made such a big deal a few years ago about having Nintendo, Microsoft, and PlayStation all on the same stage and talking to all three of them standing there and stuff. And since they like this idea of bringing, no matter which third party or first party they're in, just bringing them all together to celebrate video games, Smash Bros. Does that better than any other games. And because it was worked on for so long, and because Sakurai is so well respected in the industry, I could easily see them doing something as like a thank you or congratulations or like a special honor award for Sakurai to either celebrate him or Smash Bros. And then if they had an orchestra for that, then a Zelda song could easily be a part of it. But then they would have like the library from like Mario and Donkey Kong and everything, not just.
There's a lot to pull from there.
Yeah. But that's just speculation from me, though.
We have a super chat from Sky Dennis, donated $1. Thank you so much. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer, anything like that, Sky Dennis, feel free to throw that into the chat there, and we'll make sure to grab it right away. Put it at the top of our list there. But yeah, to continue what you're saying, like that would be really cool. Especially because Ultimate just wrapped up with their final DLC recently with Sora, and again, like the roster that's been put together feels like an accomplishment in itself, just bringing all those characters together, right? So I could see it. That would be really cool. But yeah, what do you think about trailer?
I think that is the most likely out of all of it. Nintendo, they've had trailers for, I think, Age of Calamity. They had trailers for
Champions Ballads?
Yeah, the DLC. They had trailer. No, maybe they had a normal trailer for Breath of the Wild. I don't really remember. I remember when Skyward Sword, the original, came out 10 years ago. They even had a new trailer for it at like the old Game Awards in
really?
the ye olden times.
They had gameplay demos for Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
At both Game Awards 2014 and 2015, I think. Or no, it was 2014 and then again in 2016 that they had gameplay demos of Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
So they could have that, yeah.
That's more likely than a trailer.
And with it being a sequel to a game that won Game of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point too.
That also kind of helps it out. I mean, like, what else are they going to do? Just show another Vin Diesel game?
Another Vin Diesel game? Yes, that's right. That's right. Since The Rock is starring in every movie now, Vin Diesel is going to be in every video game. That's the compromise. Yeah, you know what? Like, the closer we get to Game Awards and the more like tight-lipped Nintendo's being, it really feels like the perfect time to show to show something.
Yeah, it's like, you all thought we forgot, suckers.
Suckers. But again, like, E3 wasn't that long ago, all things considered.
I mean, it was like half a year ago. December to June.
If you think about, like, how spread apart Breath of the Wild's trailers were.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
But they did have all intentions to release it when they... Well, I don't know. Originally, when they started it, they said they wanted it to be a 3-year development cycle, and it went almost twice as long, so...
That's true. That's
Anyways,
true.
Yeah. I 100% could see a trailer, a release window, maybe. If not a date, they could summer, fall, winter. Maybe they could make up a 5th and give it.
Maybe.
And then there's always, they could just give the actual date. Or they could break all of our hearts like they did with 2 of the delays for Breath of the Wild. One was like they showed off Twilight Princess HD to like get us all hyped. And then they showed 2 seconds of Zelda Wii U, like Link riding on a horse. And it's like, oh, he has the, whatever the Sheikah Slate thing. We didn't know what it was at the time, but it was the first appearance of it. Yeah. And it's like, and then it fades out and it's like for the year after the original release date. And then like the next year, it was supposed to come out like 6 months away, and then Nintendo just posted a tweet. I mean, like, 𝗷𝗚 says sorry.
Sorry.
But it's...
Yeah. That's true. Sky Dennis, who super chatted, said in the chat here, I have a theory. If at the Game Awards they show a new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer with name reveal, the game is definitely coming next year. If that's not the case, I'm afraid it's getting delayed. I would agree with that if it weren't for the fact that in 2014 at the Game Awards they showed a gameplay demo for Breath of the Wild, and even during that gameplay demo, Miyamoto asked 𝗷𝗚 to his face, "Are you sure this is coming out next year?" And
No,
𝗷𝗚
Miyamoto
said,
asked 𝗷𝗚.
Yeah, what did I say? The other way?
Yeah. Because
Miyamoto asked
Miyamoto
𝗷𝗚
had
to-
Star Fox.
That's right. And 𝗷𝗚 said right to Miyamoto's face, he said, "Yes, I'm sure. Everyone's working very hard on it." But we didn't have a name reveal, actually. So there was no name reveal at that time. So, but he did say. And then it did not come out in 2015. So, I don't know. There's always chance of it being delayed still. But that actually segues into the next point about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD not showing up at the Game Awards, which I think is pretty safe, pretty fair assumption. I think that if we see anything about Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD, it means that we're not getting Breath of the Wild 2 next year. They're only going to release it as a filler game to tie us over. That's what I think. I think if we're going to get Twilight Princess or Wind Waker, they're going to say, we're going to give you this game to hold you over until the sequel to Breath of the Wild is ready.
That's what...
They're not going to sell it the same year that they sell Breath of the Wild 2. That's honestly what I believe.
I'm in a weird situation because I would absolutely love to have Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on the Switch.
Totally.
But my heart is longing for Ocarina of Time HD.
I know.
Just because
longing
that's the one that I've been...
started this podcast in 2017. Our podcast is 4 years old, man. How wild is that?
Yeah.
Next year, we're going to send this podcast off to kindergarten.
I know, that's crazy.
Crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, no, that's seriously what I think is. I think it's only going to be a tie-over game. And so we're not going to... If they announce it, that to me is a surefire sign that it's delayed till 2023.
What if... Okay, so they did the Mario collection and a Mario Kart Live circuit thing, whatever it was. And then a few months later, they had 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
Which was great.
So like they had the collection, the spin-off Mario Kart, and then Bowser's Fury. And those were all like in a 6-month or so time frame of each other, I want to say. And so what if it's like February release for Twilight Princess and then holiday release for Breath of the Wild? I could see that happening.
I could, I guess, but it even then feels like this stretch. I don't know. I just feel like they're not going to pit 2 Zelda games to compete against each other like that,
I
unless
think
they're tied together like the Oracle games were.
I think there was one year when we got Twilight Princess HD, Majora's Mask 3D, and Triforce Heroes all together. And like none of those are new traditional Zelda games. Like they're all spin-offs or remakes, but I feel like those came out within a year of each other.
Let me check the. So what were the 3? Majora's Mask 3D, Twilight Princess HD, and what was the other one?
Triforce Heroes.
Triforce Heroes. Okay, so.
And those all would have been 3 different Zelda teams as well. Tantalus.
Sort of. Majora's Mask 3D and Triforce Heroes both came out in 2015. So Majora's Mask 3D was February 2015. Then Triforce Heroes came out October 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Then Twilight Princess HD was March of 2016. And Twilight Princess HD was like also a tie-over game because they were like, we delayed Breath of the Wild, sorry. So
in the interviews, Tantalus said they begged Nintendo to let them make that game.
To make Twilight Princess?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did a good job. So,
they actually did a better job, and we didn't get to play it because they said they had character models and environments that had higher polygon counts and looked better, but it didn't feel like Twilight Princess, so they lowered it back to close to the original. And I'm like, if you had a better looking game, why would you take even more time?
Well, they said they had a higher poly count. Like maybe they just couldn't capture the same spirit of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or maybe it ran at like a way lower frame rate.
Ooh, maybe it didn't run right. Yeah, I still think Twilight Princess HD turned out great. I think it's the best version of the game. I think they also did a bang job with Skyward Sword HD. I'd say they did a better job with Skyward Sword HD than they did Twilight Princess.
Despite those 3 Zelda games, there is another precedent for this that's happening right now. 2 Pokemon remakes just released, and in a few months, we're getting the new Pokemon Legends.
But that's Pokemon. Pokemon, like, their Pokemon company rightfully has a confidence in their sales. They know that they can put out whatever they want. It's going to sell. You know? Pokemon just sells. So that's true. But technically, the Pokemon remakes are this year, and Legends is next year, technically. And Legends is like a spin-off, and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is a remake. So you could even... It's harder to say. With 2015's case, it was like a remake and a really... I wouldn't even call Triforce Heroes a mainline Zelda entry. I wouldn't even go that far.
They didn't even do it. They said it was a
spin-off
not on the timeline or whatever. And then a week later, I guess because it wasn't selling well, so they were like, maybe if we say it is a sequel to A Link Between Worlds, it'll sell better.
Which is too bad, because A Link Between Worlds was so great that I feel like tying them together almost tarnishes the legacy of A Link Between Worlds.
Yeah.
That game is so good. It's buttery smooth, and it's just, it's great. It's great.
That's another game that... So, before we move on to the next thing, there had been a lot of people who had asked, there's no way Nintendo would have been able to make these remakes or ports or whatever, Wind Waker, Ocarina, whatever it may be. And I answered it going into a lot of detail in an older video, but there's also the video that I posted yesterday. Towards the end of it, it kind of says the same thing. And essentially, based off of interviews and stuff from different developers, including Nintendo themselves, to make Wind Waker HD from the ground up for a new console that they had no idea how to develop for, and using parts of a new engine that they were just learning how to develop with, and coming up with what they could add or remove and stuff. So not a direct port or remaster, they were actually adding in new content as well. So all of that stuff, and then like I assume they went through tons and tons of proper testing for the Tingle Bottle stuff as well, since that was like their first online thing for Zelda.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, for Zelda.
Oh, mainline Zelda. But yeah, like that took, they said, less than like 6 months to do that, and they also said it was a small portion of the Zelda Wii U team or Breath of the Wild team. So if it took a small team like 6 months to do that, then with normal ports, different companies have said stuff like around like 1 month if you just want to quickly do it and get it over with. But if you want to properly put in the time, it could take 2 to 3 months, which is about right. You would imagine it would take half as long to do a good port of something as it would to have done an HD remaster. So that kind of works out. And there were old reports that when Nintendo was actively pushing out Wii U port after Wii U port, that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, like all these games were essentially developed or ported around the same time, and then just held like one.
It's supposedly easy to port to Switch from Wii U.
Yeah. So.
But with timing is everything, right? That's the thing.
And they also.
I don't think they're gonna.
Sorry.
At the same time either, right?
Yeah.
But very little would have to be done. They've already HD'd the games up, right? They wouldn't have to do too much. Although I would love to see them run 50 frames.
And they also have that weird version of like that Frankenstein version of Twilight Princess in China that's running on
right.
It's
the
essentially
NVIDIA
a
version?
Switch. Yeah, it's Switch hardware, but it's like the GameCube version mixed with Wii. Like I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah, so like they already have it essentially running on the Switch. And yeah, it's like if you already have it, chances are, you know, I don't know, it's just a weird thing. It's like, why not just go ahead and release it? I know.
I'm pretty sure it's in 𝗷𝗵𝗲𝗛𝗆's desk drawer. You could just like pull it open, and he's got like a, you know, a hard drive with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on him.
Yeah, that's how the Giga leak happened. Someone just walked into his office and was like, "I'm going to borrow this flash drive." And he's like, "All right, just bring it back."
All right, bring it back when you're done.
No, so yeah, like I think it's a situation to where I don't think Nintendo would be actively developing it now. Like Tantalus, obviously they finished Twilight Princess. They probably started on Skyward Sword shortly after. They even kind of teased it, saying that there was a bunch of Nintendo games that they were working on that hadn't been announced, and this was like a while after the Switch released. And one of those obvious games was Skyward Sword, which is why I was always saying Tantalus was working on Skyward Sword. And as they did with Grezzo and Koei Tecmo or Ninja whatever the developers were that made Hyrule Warriors, you would imagine if the game sells well, then they're just going to let them go ahead, since they already have the experience of remastering HD Zelda games or porting them to Switch, just let them go ahead and do another. So yeah, like I think
60 frames.
Huh?
60 frames per second this time.
Yeah. So on Twilight Princess, one thing is if you're close to Zora's domain where the waterfall is and you stand next to the waterfall, it might be just because of all the different particle effects from the water splashing around, but it starts to chug down like Korok Forest and Breath of the Wild. And because of that, I'm like, there is absolutely no way that original tech demo was actually running on a Wii U. And if it was, it's because it was just rendering that one room and like 2 bats.
Yeah, that's all they had to do is the one room. that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking like Skyward Sword. Like this would be technically a more intensive game to run than Twilight Princess would be. So if they can get Skyward Sword to stay at a consistent 60 frames, there's no reason they can't with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. They could probably have the whole map loaded in and run it just fine.
Dolphin Emulator even has a harder time running Skyward Sword than it does Twilight Princess. So you are correct on that.
But we got a super chat from Hylian Racer. Thank you for the super chat. Hylian Racer, if you have
50 MX. I don't know what I'm going to assume that is $1 billion.
That is Mexican pesos.
Yeah,
So
I don't know the conversion rate, so I'm just going to assume it's $1 billion.
that's what it is. But thank you for the super chat. If you have a question or anything else that you would like us to answer, anything like that, let us know in the chat there, and we'll make sure to grab it for you there.
And do you have anything final on this before we move on to the Metroid stuff, which I know you love?
On this subject, I think we're good to move on. I just remembered another topic that I had suggested we talk about that, that I forgot about. So I'm gonna add it into the Google Doc here, and hope that we have time for it. It's not urgent. But
well, I mean,
actually,
we usually go longer on Zelda, anyways.
But also, this is kind of a double one. I just realized that we had both Game Awards predictions and Samus Hunter leak on here, and I feel like that covers both of them. What we just talked about.
Oh, the predictions I wrote was the winners. Predicting the winners, which you said you wanted to do after Joe comes on.
No, because that'll be because we're having Joe next week, and then the Game Awards are the week after. So what? But yeah, it's now or never. It's today or never.
Or maybe Joe's feeling nice, and he's like,
maybe Joe.
No,
he's gotta.
I think I already know which games he would pick anyways. So going with the predictions, we can try to do that one if there's enough time. And it's not something that would go on too long because you just look at the different nominees and then just say whichever you think's going to win and then move on to the next. So well,
probably I'm just thinking if it's because Geek couldn't make it and Shoop couldn't make it, maybe we should skip trivia till next week and then.
But I put in so much hard work.
Keep that trivia thing.
Yeah.
Till next week.
All right.
Or the something.
So the Metroid thing now.
Sure. You want to go ahead with that one?
No,
I read this first one.
Okay, I'll read the first one, then you do the second one.
Oh, sure. It's a two-part news, guys.
Yes. So I seen a lot of people were reporting on the second piece, but no one had really mentioned the first one. And the weird thing, I remembered the first one, but I was watching or reading something where the person was like, they're just coming out with this out of nowhere. Like it doesn't make sense or whatever. And I'm like, no, I remember one, like there was the Metroid Prime 1 rumor that was going around a few months ago. And I looked it up and it was also from her. So I was like, okay, well, better to have like the full story or whatever. Instead of like just, because there's a lot of people that will report on rumors or leaks and they're just like, yeah, it could happen. Who knows? Don't listen to anything unless Nintendo confirms it. And it's like, even
that sounds like me.
Well, it's like even if Nintendo confirms it, it's like, yeah, they denied how many, like they have a track record of it denying at least 10 things every year that ends up coming out shortly after. So it's like you can't even like you can't even go on what Nintendo themselves say. But anyways,
that's why I don't do news on my channel, because I just would say that every time. I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah. So this comes from My Nintendo News. Emily Rogers says that Nintendo is working on Metroid Prime 1 Switch remake for next year's anniversary. So this was posted on September 23rd, 2021. And is the anniversary next year? I thought it shared the anniversary with Zelda.
For Metroid Prime 1's release date?
Oh, maybe it's Metroid Prime 1's anniversary.
November 17th, 2002. What was its release date? So it turns 20 next year.
And that is similar to what they did with Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, and maybe even Wind Waker, to where it released on the 10-year anniversary, the remakes.
That's correct.
So 20 would make sense. Anyways, so there's a famed Nintendo insider, Emily Rogers. And for those who don't know, she had a lot of really great leaks that ended up mostly true whenever the Switch was releasing and the Breath of the Wild news was starting to come out. Anyways, Emily Rogers has tweeted about the long-rumored Metroid Prime trilogy for the Nintendo Switch system. She believes that the idea may have been scrapped, as she has heard that Nintendo has been busy working on a remake of the first Metroid Prime game for the Nintendo Switch system. So that's interesting. Why would they scrap a Prime trilogy for Metroid Prime? And I have an idea on that. But the original game, Metroid Prime series, blah, 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 Kyoto-based. So that's basically it, saying that they're essentially starting. Her actual tweet says, last I heard, Nintendo was busy working on Metroid Prime 1 to celebrate the 20th anniversary. I'm not sure if we're getting a trilogy or just a re-release of the first game. I'm leaning toward the latter, but I hope we get the former. So this is another thing. The article kind of twists her words, because she doesn't mention them ending a trilogy to start on a single game, but that's literally what the article says. So if it was that, the idea that I had was the trilogy could have just been a simple remastered port, like upscale it, maybe add in textures.
I'm playing through the Prime games, the Wii version, on my streams. If you go back and watch those streams, visually, those games hold up pretty well. They wouldn't have to do very much to visually update them. Yeah.
But if they decided to go with just one game, like Metroid Prime 1, then the situation could be, instead of just doing a simple port, they could do like what they did the Batman Arkham games, where they were originally on Unreal Engine 3, and then they did a collection where they were all remastered with Unreal Engine 4. Wind Waker HD, a lot of people just think it's the original Wind Waker engine, but it's like half that and half the Zelda Wii U engine, because that was the whole reason they ended up making it to begin with, was to experiment and learn how to use the Zelda Wii U engine. And then, what was it? God of War did something similar, to where they remade God of War 3 using the God of War 4 engine. And I think that might be a similar situation, to where they could have been working on the trilogy and then decided to get better acquainted with the Metroid Prime 4 engine to redo something they already knew the ins and outs of with the first one, and just like learn what the engine can do and can't do on the Switch based off of a game that you already know how to do everything with, and then take that knowledge to help speed up the development time on the actual new game, which again is what Nintendo did with Wind Waker going to Breath of the Wild. So yeah, that's what I was originally thinking whenever I read that, which was completely different than what she actually said. So
yes, very different.
But Daniel, what is the second thing there?
So the second tweet here, hold on. So here's what the article says. By now you've probably heard the various Metroid Prime rumors that have been... What?
Look, where I had my headphone on, it has an imprint in my hair. I don't know if
oh yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That is fun.
But yeah, continue.
No worries, no worries. So you read the one from September 23rd. This one comes from November 11th, so it's much more recent. By now you've probably heard about the various Metroid Prime rumors that have been coming from insiders in the past few years. Rumors of a trilogy of the Metroid Prime games have now become rumors of a remake of the first Prime game coming out next year, which is the 20th anniversary of the game's original release. Insider that originally revealed the Prime remake news a couple of months ago, Emily Rogers, shares an update about it earlier today. According to Rogers, the remake of Prime 1 had wrapped up development over the summer. And here's the tweet, actually, in her own words. So, someone else had tweeted at her saying, "It sours me that it was reported back in 2018 that the whole trilogy was done, and now we're just getting one out of the three." And she responded, "Work on Metroid Prime 1 remasters started around 2017-2018. The original plan was to develop and release Prime 1 first, then use Prime 1's foundation, the engines, tools, assets, etc., to recreate Prime 2 and 3 later. Nobody knows if plans were changed or axed because of COVID. It would be cool if Nintendo sticks to their original plans and brings all 3 Metroid Primes to Switch. I'm rooting for the best possible scenario here. Only thing I can confirm at the moment is Prime 1 exists and it just wrapped up development over the summer. So I'm just going to say that I'm with this guy, Kevin, that tweeted at Emily Rogers that it is souring hearing this. And the reason for that is that I swear I have heard at least once a year for the past 4 years straight some leaker or rumor saying that Metroid Prime is coming. Even back, actually, that's true. Even back in the Wii, so even longer. I swear I've heard every year, at least once, sometimes more than once a year, some leaker or some insider comes out and says Prime Trilogy or Prime is coming to Switch, and it never does. It never does. And I feel like if they finished it or they were working on it in 2018, again, like they don't need to do much to bring these games up to a Switch capacity. Like, honest, they don't. They do not. The amount of work to take a GameCube or Wii game and put it on Switch, they did it with All-Stars, with Mario All-Stars in like a matter of months, right?
Nintendo's own words with Wind Waker, like porting it using a new engine, not just using the old engine, which I would imagine would be even quicker, only took them like less than 6 months. So you could put out all 3 in like a year and a half.
Absolutely. So I mean, I'm gonna say this. I'll believe it when I see it, for one thing. The other thing is that this timing does make more sense than previous leaks, only because we're getting closer and closer to Prime 4's release date. And obviously releasing the Prime games before Prime 4 comes out is just good marketing. Brings everyone up to speed, right? It'll renew interest in that, right? Just like what they should have done with the other Metroid games before Dread came out, but then they didn't. I don't know why. So
it's also kind of what they did with Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild 2, to where they announced the Skyward Sword HD, which is all about the sky, and then the next trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 was also all about the sky. So it's using one to hype up the new game.
That's true. Yeah. So it's anyway, for the time being, I'll believe it when but like I'm almost tired of it, of this cycle of everybody being like, oh, this time it's true. Like I saw on Twitter someone had posted it, there was like a collection of 4 or 5 screenshots of Nintendo Life, and again, I'm just gonna say I love Nintendo Life. They're a great website. Their YouTube crew with Xeon and John and Alex are wonderful. They're great people. But I swear, there's like 4 or 5 different news reports from their website, all headlines saying Metroid Prime is coming to Switch, and all like over the course of like 3 years. And it's like, I've seen this already. Yeah. I've seen this one. Like...
So you know I hate this, but what happens is there's a lot of these websites where like someone was right once upon a time with a rumor or a leak they said, and then all of a sudden they're always referred to as reliable leaker. Blah blah blah, and then it's like, well, they got that one thing right that one time, but then if you look at 99 other things they said, it was all wrong. Like,
well, there was that one guy that you brought this to my attention, wasn't it? There was another leak he had like put the same leak out like 4 times, and every time he was wrong, he just
always Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
That's right. He just kept changing the date.
Yeah,
and that was it.
It's already finished. It's coming out in 2018 or 19. Yeah. And then it's like, no, it's delayed for 6 months. 6 months later, it's pushed. Nintendo's saving it in case Breath of the Wild 2 gets delayed out of 2020. And it's like, it was never even announced for 20.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's
yeah. So I don't know. I'm just like, part of me is tired of the cyclical nature of the Prime games. Like they're wonderful games. I'm playing through them right now. I think they're truly great games. I do believe they deserve to be on Switch. I really do.
Yeah, you are playing through the Prime games, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Where can people watch that?
You can check out 𝗵𝗲 on YouTube, and I'm streaming them every Saturday. Saturdays are our Saturday night Metroid streams.
Cool. And is that a government holiday? Like, do we get out of school for that?
Yeah, there's no school Saturday nights.
Cool.
So there's no public schools at least. But yeah, anyways, it's feel free to check them out. They're great games. They're great games. They even run at 60 frames per second on the Wii. and which is incredible. And so that's the version I'm playing, is the trilogy version on Wii. So like I really do think that they deserve to be on Switch. I do. I just feel like whenever a leaker or someone is like, yeah, Metroid Prime's coming to Switch,
it's the easy thing to get noticed by saying.
It totally is, and I'm just rolling my eyes every time. But I'm like, again, like
it's like how the Zelda Netflix is working on a Zelda movie, like popped up every 3 months for like 5 years.
That was absurd. Yeah, that came up a lot. But that funny thing is that one turned out to be true.
Yeah.
That's which I find really funny, because I was a big doubter on that one. So
yeah, it was so weird, because you would think anyone who would be interested would have already known about it, because it popped up like 50 times in a single year.
Yeah, you think so.
But there's still people that I would see on social media that's like, oh my god, did you guys hear about this? And I'm like, how did you not hear about that? That article's 4 years old.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. Anyways, so you're
funny, because that publicity is what caused it to be canceled, guys.
Yeah, that is true.
So.
You had a quote from Emily about using basically the foundation from Metroid Prime 1 to develop 2 and then 3.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of how they had developed the original trilogy, right?
But that's because 2 and 3 didn't exist, so they had to create it using the tools they had from the first game. But 2 and 3 do exist now. So what do you think that means with because I have an idea, but what do you think? Where instead of
we're talking about the new engine, tools, and assets, using Prime 1's foundation with those things, those terms imply to me like from the ground up.
Yeah, so not a port or a remake, or not a port or remaster, but an actual remake.
But an actual remake, yeah, like totally from the ground up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
That's what I think. But again, I don't even think that's necessary. I really think they could just redraw a few assets, redraw some textures, up-res it, and it's good to go. I really think that I think it's some of the controls might need to be a bit updated.
Well, her suit is robotic, like it's supposed to look kind of cyber tech robotic-y, so the sharp, jagged lines that lower polygon models would have from the Game Boy area, or the Game Boy, no, not the Game Boy, the GameCube era upscaled to HD, it would just match with it perfectly.
It would still look. And honestly, there's not even that many jagged edges. It's pretty smoothed out. It's not a rough model by any means. Like if you look up Samus's Prime model, like it looks good. It really does. The only thing is sometimes, like at the very end of Prime 1, when you get the face reveal, that looks dated, because they were trying to do a realistic looking human face in the year 2002. So that looks dated, but everything else pretty much looks good. There's a few textures I think they could redraw in up-res. But other than that, I really think that most of everything holds up really shockingly well. Shockingly really well. Like, I was surprised playing through these games on my own. I'm streaming them. I'm surprised at how well they hold up visually. And I think that's the benefit of going into a game like that with a strong art direction, and a strong, like, clear vision of what kind of, you steer clear of trying to make too many realistic looking humans, and just have a strong art direction, and your game is going to hold up really well. And that's, I think, the case for what we see with like Wind Waker, and now what we see with the Prime games. So
okay, another question that ties into this, from Metroid Prime 1, like with Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, even the Pokemon remakes, and like they sped up Super Mario Sunshine as well to make the game kind of play a little bit faster.
And Worlds as well, as it runs faster as well.
Okay, so what kind of fixes? What would be the adding a faster sailcloth, or removing some of the Tears of Light segments that they had in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess for Metroid Prime 1? Like, what, since they're going through the trouble of remaking this game and not just porting it over, what could they change while they're in there to make it worth it?
So,
like, the game itself would be worth it, but you know what I mean.
mean, there's not much. You clean up some of the HUD elements, I think, and you could. Okay, actually, there's something. So it's not as much a problem in the third game, but the first two Prime games have basically like the very last part of the game before the final area or the final boss is like a bit of a fetch quest. You basically like you come back. In both games, basically, you come up to a locked door and you need to find a bunch of keys for it, and they're like spread out across the whole world. And I'm gonna say that I actually personally don't mind that very much because it makes use of the world, and in most of, though not all of them, but in most cases, you can actually pick those up as you play through the game. Like you'll just you stop in the side room and pick up one of the keys that you're gonna need at the end of the game. So it's like not that bad in my opinion. But a lot of people hate that. They hate that fetch quest, that very final fetch. It's like Wind Waker's equivalent of the Triforce fetch quest. Like all these little things, and they're just spread across the whole world, right? So in like Metroid Prime, there's like the 12 temple artifacts that you have to find. And it's not so much a problem in Prime 3 because you don't actually need to find all of them. You need to find like 8 out of 12. And they, again, you can just pick them up as you're exploring anyway. So by the time you get to that...
And it's not something optional. Like finding all the Koroks or Gold Skulltulas. Like, this is required.
It's required, yeah. It's like the last locked door before the end of the game.
How would you...
Prime 3 is really not a big deal. But yeah, I would just streamline that a little bit, probably. Like trim it down or just make it so that you can pick them up more easily throughout the entirety of the game instead of just right before the very end.
All right, here's the most important question you're going to be asked this year.
Yeah.
If you had to put that fetch quest where you have to find all this stuff side by side with the hide and seek cat game from Twilight Princess, how would you rate it?
You know what, that hide and seek cat game is pretty irritating, right, Princess? I would say that's worse.
Okay.
But no, no.
So if the cat thing is worse, then the Metroid thing's not really that bad.
But no, people hate it. People really think that that's like the one that's like the terrible worst.
Maybe
part
those
of the game.
people need to try finding a few cats.
And
be like, I swear I've already talked to every single cat 10 times.
But again, like I personally don't mind them. I've seen loads of reviews like about them. But then when I was playing the game, I'm like, you know what? They give you pretty strong hints of where to find these things. You can find most of them while you're going through the game and playing them. You just maybe a couple of them you have to backtrack through. But like, I really don't.
Metroid already has you backtrack.
That's true.
Like that's
tons of backtracking in Metroid.
The main focus of that's like a big feature of the gameplay is backtracking.
It literally is, yeah. Yeah, you get a power up. You're like, all right, now I've got this thing. They're like, great, now you can go use it all the way.
And you say people still complain about the backtracking, even though that's like a key part of the gameplay.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things that people complain about. And the thing is, like I say this, I also did not mind the Triforce fetch quest in Wind Waker, which is pretty similar to that Metroid Prime one. Like they're pretty similar fetch quests. Like before you go back down to Hyrule in Wind Waker, okay, you finished all the dungeons, except now you just got to go find all the Triforce pieces, and then
Tingle's actually useful.
Yeah, and Tingle's actually useful, so that's why it's better, because the Metroid games don't have Tingle. So no, but I never minded that Triforce fetch quest because I thought what it does is it incentivizes you to explore this great, huge open world, and it makes use of that open world. But people just don't like having to search for things, I guess.
Yeah.
People are being a real Jaffe about it. So being a real David Jaffe. Do I have to look around my surroundings and explore things? I don't want to.
So 2 small quick follow-ups about the Metroid thing is, so Retro took over development for one of Nintendo's in-house Japanese development teams.
Right.
To work on Metroid Prime 4. Do you think they could have been the people working on Metroid Prime 1 before, or Metroid Prime Trilogy before it got scaled back, or whatever nonsense this was?
Imagine that.
Or what developer could you see making it? Because I could see Tantalus, as, like if they're going with the second developer.
Right.
I could see Tantalus doing it because, especially with Skyward Sword, they have a lot of experience with taking that motion control and adopting it to traditional controls as best they can, which is what Metroid Prime 3 only had motion controls. And the second question, Echoes had multiplayer, right? Like
yes,
a weird multiplayer. Do you think that could be something that they would add? Like some weird form of multiplayer. Like Banjo-Tooie had amazing multiplayer. You just ran around, shot eggs at everyone. It was great.
It's true. Metroid Prime 2 doesn't have eggs, so it's inferior.
That's why Age of Calamity outsold.
No eggs.
That's why Age of Calamity outsold Wind Waker.
That's no.
Because Age of Clams had egg.
It has egg. And egg is good. Yeah. So I honestly I always forget that Metroid Prime 2 has multiplayer. I always forget.
Yeah, and there is that huge, well, not huge, but multiple times the president of Nintendo stated how they want to put a big focus on their online stuff. So it seems like
I'm pretty sure the only reason they put multiplayer in Prime 2 was because they were competing with Halo, basically. Like they were like trying to get in the Halo crowd. But it's the most bare bones like multiplayer deathmatch mode like that you could think of.
Yeah.
Again, it's not great.
So what do you think the developer situation would be? Because it would make sense.
A retro with it, really.
No one but retro?
In my opinion, like that's all I'd want is retro.
Well, apparently. So do you remember on the Metroid for Nintendo 64 and Miyamoto was like, yeah, we wanted to make it, but we couldn't find a developer to make it. And then they literally basically created Retro Studios specifically to make Metroid Prime for the GameCube. And it's like,
to make it.
Yeah, it's that same situation to where all the lead developers at Nintendo kept on saying they were afraid to screw it up and like mess up the game. And
well,
it's
that's because
like
it came hot off the heels of the masterpiece that is known as Super Metroid, right? Or by hot off the heels, 8 years off the heels.
But
there's an 8-year gap between those games, but like so much time had passed. It's like your first foray bringing this franchise back, like that's pretty high pressure.
And in 3D. But it's essentially history repeating itself because apparently that is exactly what happened to where Nintendo had one of their teams try working on it and that same fear actually came true and they did mess up somehow. There was people saying that the game was just barely started. There was people saying the game was like a quarter to halfway done. And then
you have to respect Nintendo for that integrity.
Yeah. To
see the game and be like, it's not up to our standards, it's not good enough, and just throw the whole thing in the garbage and start over.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, let's say, for example, GTA Trilogy that just came out, and a hot burning mess of
I do not understand that at all. Because that game it's been ported almost everywhere.
Yeah. How Rockstar has the money and the resources to make it good, you know? Like they can do it.
They just have 1 million people working on Grand Theft Auto 6 and like one person porting over.
So it's like
with a keyboard that half works.
It's unbelievable like how much of a cash grab that obviously was because they obviously didn't have time to like even check it for bugs or anything, right? So yeah, that's another one of those things. It's like you have to respect Nintendo's artistic integrity that they would just scrap development if it's not good enough. That, you know.
Okay.
Like,
so
this sucks.
Everyone knows. Like, we're just two dudes. I don't even know the news in the outside world. I don't know what's going. I'm just locked in your basement, so I have no sort. I don't know anyone who works at Nintendo or anything. So with that said, what if the idea was to have Metroid Prime 4 when like whatever day it was originally scheduled to release when it was being developed the first time, like maybe they had a 2-3 year development cycle they wanted to get through. What if the Prime trilogy or Prime 1 began development to release like 6 months or a year before to like bring players back up before the release, And then because Prime 4 got delayed, they held back on the trilogy or the one game.
Maybe. Or
and like, that's why we had
or like if Retro was working on bringing the trilogy to Switch, and then when they scrapped Prime 4 with the other company that was working on it, and they brought Retro on to work on Prime 4 instead, which
they went from Prime trilogy to Prime 4.
Yeah, like maybe they were working on the Prime trilogy and they had to stop and be like, okay, now we have to work on the next game instead, which is again what they should have done from the start.
Because
I mean, that's a solid theory. Like, I think
if we're gonna say some of those rumors had at least a tiny bit of substantial honesty behind them, and not someone just trying to get a retweet or something, then I could see that as a reason why there were so many rumors back then, and then like some time passed, and then there's a whole new set of rumors.
I could see it,
because it's like it was going to release, and then now it was.
It would make sense, because what has Retro been doing? Like, there was a gap where no one knows what Retro was. They finished Tropical Freeze. I'm actually
on their Wikipedia right now to look up what it is they're doing.
Because they finished Tropical Freeze, and then it was like, what are they working on? And everyone was like, what's Retro? No one knows what Retro Studios is working on, until it announced that they scrapped development of Prime 4.
Oh, no. What they were working on, they had to take 4 years to port the Wii U version of Tropical Freeze to the Switch.
They just added Funky, and that was it.
No, it says, because they did their own port, which is kind of rare, but this is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze 2014, and then Nintendo Switch 2018. It's like, oh, so they took 4 years.
That's the thing. I do not believe for a second that they were working on that for 4 years, but I would believe that they were working on 3 Metroid games during that time.
This is even better.
And
the original only took 3 years, but the Switch port, that's almost as bad as like what was Grezzo doing when they were working on Majora's Mask 3D, because like the original, where they had to create most of the stuff from nothing, like they had all the assets and stuff from the DLC, but
it took them years to shrink Jabu down so that they could put him in the fishing pond in Majora's Mask.
Maybe it's just like the one guy that's like, just let me finish the fishing pond. Just like, that's it. That's all I wanted.
I need to finish the fishing pond.
Which apparently is what, I think there was an interview where they said Wind Waker was meant to have a fishing thing in it, and they had like one.
All games are fishing.
They had one guy who was working on the fishing stuff, but he put so much into it that it ended up going from like a normal fishing pond to what Twilight Princess was, to where you could just fish anywhere, and there was like actual different types of fish and everything. Like he spent so long working on it that it didn't even get put in the game it was meant to be put into, and then he spent another 5 years working on just the one fishing thing, and it was just the one guy. So it's like,
he's our fishing guy.
Yeah, literally.
Dedication.
But yeah, there's Mario Kart 7. So it seems they have 2 teams. They have the Metroid Prime trilogy. Okay, so Metroid Prime 2002, Prime 2 Echoes 2004.
Makes sense. 2 year development.
2 years to completely make that game.
Yeah.
3 years for Corruption, but that was also on the Wii, and they had to probably experiment with the motion controls and stuff as well. And then they had the trilogy 2 years later in 2009. So all of those took 2 to 3 years apart from each other.
Right.
So you would imagine if creating the game from nothing takes 2 years, then porting it at the least would take like, like it would be down to those 2 to 3 months. And even if they are completely remaking it, because they don't have to think of any new ideas or concepts or gameplay mechanics and test this and test that, and they already have the game, so they could just take that 2 year development time, and since they already know what they're doing, just have it in 1 year. Like Nintendo, again, with Wind Waker HD, Wind Waker took like 3 years, and then porting it with the new engine to Wii U while adding in a bunch of new content was less than 6 months, and it was a small team. And yeah, you're thinking, well, back then, like, games are more advanced today, so they take longer to develop. And it's like, not really, because yeah, the games you're making are more advanced, but the computers and the engines you're using are also a lot faster.
Right. And at the same time, just sure, games are more advanced today, but we're talking about porting a game back then, so it's that argument.
So even if Metroid Prime was remade in a new engine and not just a simple port, I could see it taking no longer than a single year.
That's fair. Yeah. So, and again, these are already games that they ported to Wii, and it didn't take them that long to do.
Yeah, it was 2 years for all of them.
Between Prime 3 and Trilogy?
Yeah, it was 2 years, 2007, 2009. And then it seems they split into 2 different teams at that time, because they had Country Returns in 2010 and Mario Kart 7 in 2011. And then Tropical Freeze in 2014 and 2018. So whatever they were doing for those years, like, we don't presuming the Donkey Kong team is the team that is working on Metroid Prime 4, they still have an unannounced game from their team who worked on Mario Kart 7. But they could have combined them, which would mean that Metroid Prime 4 would be finished even faster because they had more people working on it. Like Breath of the Wild with Nintendo and Monolith.
This idea of yours actually seems quite likely to me now. The more, like, we're looking at these release dates and the numbers here, the more it seems likely that maybe they were working on Prime Trilogy to bring Switch.
I do. That is just a guess. I'm locked in your basement. I have no way of talking to anyone.
Sure. But, like, it makes sense if you look at those release dates. They had a 4-year gap. No one knows what the hell they were doing
with 2 teams
during that 4-year gap. With 2 teams, yeah.
Both teams took 4 years to port it.
There's no way it took 4 years to port Tropical Freeze over to Switch. So yeah, they had to be doing something, and it would make sense if that something was working on the Prime Trilogy to bring to Switch, and then Nintendo was like, well, we'll release it when the time's right.
Or and then they were like, finish it because they had to.
Right. Or then they had to shift gears because Nintendo restarted development of Prime 4 and brought Retro on to do that. What studio was it that was originally working on Prime 4?
It wasn't one of their unnamed studios. How they have like Nintendo EAD, blah, blah, blah.
Whoever it was, they weren't doing good enough, apparently. So
I'll look up to see which specific one it was and if they have a previous game. So
yeah, I mean, like, this makes sense to me. Like, this...
Oh, no. It was initially reported in development by Bandai Namco.
Oh, it was Namco.
That's weird, though. No, I remember all of the reports saying it was one of Nintendo's, like, in-studio, like, in-house teams.
So Bandai Namco was working on it, weren't doing a good enough job, so Nintendo scrapped everything they were working on, threw it all in the garbage, and gave the project back to Retro.
Yeah, if it was Bandai Namco, I could see why they took it away.
Savage, Jesse.
No, so they apparently worked on Pokemon Snap, the new one.
Namco did?
Yeah.
Bandai Namco? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I can see this. This makes sense then if...
So they probably left Prime 4 to work on Snap.
That makes sense. So, and then they gave...
Metroid Prime 4 is a little too complicated. Just have this on-rails Pokemon game.
There you go. And then now Retro has to drop what they're doing and start working on Prime 4, which they probably wanted to do.
Oh, this might be why as well. They helped on Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Bandai Namco did? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But not Retro.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, solid case. That would make sense. Again, why all those rumors popped up back in like 2018 and stuff, and then fell off for a while, and then, you know, they've still been showing up. But also, there were people talking about like a Super Metroid remake a couple years back, and I was like, no thanks.
Yeah, that was another thing. Someone commented on the video from, it was a comment today, but I think it was on yesterday's video. They said something about blah blah blah. This person's never correct everything they say is wrong, talking about the concerts and everything. And I'm like, well, I went through and checked like almost like a spreadsheet of a bunch of different well-known leakers that are always being talked about to see how accurate they were, which is what you mentioned earlier with the one guy.
Right.
And like 99% of the stuff from her was correct, and the thing that he tried saying was her was that Super Metroid thing. So I went to her Twitter and Google and a bunch of other places, and I couldn't find I couldn't find anything relating her to that. But I did find something coming up later from, I think it's Zippo. There was an article tying the Super Metroid remake to Zippo.
I still don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I
Super
don't
Metroid is like one of those legacy games that I just don't think they're ever gonna they're gonna put it on every system and let you play it, but I don't. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I think the game is bloody well flawless the way it is. So, you know, and people complain about the controls. That's the only thing I've seen people complain about. And I'm like, did you know that it has built-in button mapping? So you can change the controls if you want to. Not just the Switch's button mapping, like the game itself has a button mapping option in its settings. But anyway, so yeah.
I just realized I was saying all that basement stuff that we don't know anyone, and we're literally having someone
tomorrow or next week. Next week we're having yeah, next week. That's funny, but yeah. I think we can probably move on from Metroid.
Yeah. I was about to say the next one should be really quick, because it was just basically pictures with the date. So during the investors meeting, there was mentions of a new Mario game, the Mario movie, the Breath of the Wild 2, and some other stuff coming next year, and then just marked 20XX, not 2022 or whatever. So essentially a placeholder date, which was what the entire video I posted about a week ago was covering. Because when people don't know the exact date, they just put whatever the last date of that month or year is. Which actually helped, because then people stopped messaging me saying like, oh, this release date for Breath of the Wild 2. And I'm like, if they don't know the name of the game, they probably don't know the release date either.
Yeah.
So anyways,
it's just their best guess,
the 20XX thing, I can honestly see Nintendo not even knowing when they would be able to release it, depending on how bad that CPU and GPU chip shortage is, because there was a lot of rumors, like all the people that were correct about the Switch Lite coming out were also saying a Switch with a larger screen that was supposed to be the Switch Pro was also coming out. And it's like they were correct on the first one, and then they were half correct on the second one. And then that half correct thing is still, like, that can be explained by the chip shortage. Like, maybe that was their original plan, but it would have been too expensive to where, like, instead of the $350 price, which may have been why the price went up $50, but like if they would have went with their original idea, then instead of whatever price it would have just been like $500, like way too expensive for Nintendo. So like waiting for that price to come down to purchase and manufacture all of the consoles, like I could see that being what they're doing. That way they don't have to, like, yeah, it'll be cheaper for them and cheaper for the customers. And yeah, that's essentially what like I think it was meant to release, and then as like a Pro, but instead we ended up getting the OLED because of this chip shortage. And there's also the Wall Street Journal or whoever it was stating a lot of developers already had Switch Pro or 4K hardware, which honestly, like, that's common sense. And the video that's coming out later on next week, they're there's a lot of interviews directly from Nintendo in it where they literally state, like, despite some of the interviews you said, well, Nintendo said they weren't working on this, whatever. Like, there's several different interviews from various presidents, Miyamoto, other people at Nintendo, where they literally state, as soon as they finish one console, just like as soon as they finish one Zelda game, they move on to the next one. And then it's the same, like, the time it takes for the console to release. On one of Nintendo's quotes, they mentioned something like they get an idea of how powerful they want the console to be, and then how expensive they want it to be, and then it's just waiting on time for hardware that powerful to become that cheap. That way, because if you bought like something as powerful as a PlayStation 5 when the PlayStation 4 released, you'd be paying like $1,200 instead of $400. So expensive. And then no one, So anyway, I think it's a situation basically like that. So 100%. Obviously, Nintendo had been working on something Switch Pro related, whatever. But so what are your thoughts on that? Or any of the other stuff?
Pretty much exactly what you said.
Yeah, the interesting thing, like I put Mario on there twice. I don't know why, but Mario game and Mario movie, I think that's common sense. Like, they haven't had a major Mario game in a while, and you would imagine
that one was with Odyssey, right? So
the perfect time to release a new Mario game that's not 3D World or the 3D All Stars would be when around the time the movie's coming out, so they can help promote each other.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah,
that's just business savvy.
Yeah,
and the OLED, the OLED stuff, like, that just makes sense to me. That, like, there was all these Switch Pro rumors and stuff going around, and OLED, the OLED screen was a big part of those rumors, and then it came out, but it's not actually. And
the dock being capable of 4K, which the OLED dock is capable of 4K.
Technically capable, but does not do 4K, but it's technically capable. So it's interesting. That idea, I think it holds some weight to it. But yeah, I mean, everything else, like, is pretty much like what you'd expect, I think, honestly. Them developing a new Mario game doesn't surprise me. Mario games are
we get like 10
they come out pretty frequently. They come out pretty frequently, right? So, and I mean, another mainline Mario game, it's been like over 4.5 years since Odyssey. Bowser's Fury was great, but it was pretty short.
That was another thing. Was it Melons that we had on that said that he had heard that Bowser's Fury was meant to be
Odyssey DLC?
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, and that made so much sense to me, because just the way it actually plays feels like a world in Odyssey. Like, it feels like an Odyssey level, but they took, like, components of the world and, like, spread them far apart, like, broke it up into chunks. But, like, it totally feels like that, except it's like 3D World's engine or some of 3D World's power-ups and gameplay, but in an Odyssey gameplay style. Like, it feels like the perfect marriage between those two games, and it's wonderful. It's great, but totally makes sense if that was meant to be part of Odyssey in some capacity.
Yeah,
totally makes sense.
And they were working on DLC for Odyssey because they had the Luigi balloon game that was really weird. So it's like they were working on DLC. I think that was free DLC, and
that was free.
It would make sense that they also had plans for paid DLC, because it was a Game of the Year nominee. It sold really, really, really well. It was at a time when Nintendo was trying to put DLC on everything. Hyrule Warriors got like 50,000 sets of DLC, and it didn't even sell that well. So
that's true.
Yeah. I think I'm done with that one.
Yeah, I mean, not much to talk about there. Nothing really surprising from all things considered. Yeah.
The next one is the Zippo one. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is
Jesse, what's the difference between a Zippo and a hippo?
a Z. Yeah, I'm Canadian. A Z.
No, the difference between a hippo and a Zippo is one's very heavy,
And one
and the
gets
other
hungry.
is a little lighter.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I'm sorry. Anyways,
Yeah.
please continue.
Everyone watching, we are dads.
we are dads.
So, yeah, this is basically, we mentioned one rumor from him earlier about the Super Metroid thing, but this is talking about Rare, and this is something that I think a lot of people could just use a bit of common sense and a teeny itsy bitsy amount of research into Nintendo's patterns or the history and the relationship building Nintendo's had with not just retro but Microsoft. Like, people don't realize it, and I bring it up all the time. Daniel's probably sick of hearing it, but there is literally a Microsoft Xbox first party game theme Nintendo console with the Minecraft themed 3DS, which is like, when have you ever heard, like, that would be like a God of War themed Xbox or a Zelda themed PlayStation or something like this is crazy.
Unheard of.
Yeah, and it did start as an indie game, and then Microsoft bought it. But we also know that, like, with the next Elder Scrolls game, Microsoft bought that studio, and then they've also stated that will be an exclusive. So even though it had, like, games have a history of being on multiple consoles, that doesn't mean that it has to always be on multiple consoles. So the fact that Nintendo,
look at, Bayonetta, like, was a multi-platform game until Nintendo swooped in, and and
then so that's, like, not just the fact that Microsoft or Xbox would be okay with having one of their franchises associated heavily and giving a theme to help Nintendo consoles sell better. Like, that's one side of the argument you would have to win, but then the other side's like, from Nintendo's perspective, why would they allow one of their consoles to be themed after an Xbox game when they could just put Pikmin or Zelda and
the answer
they would know that it would sell?
Is because Minecraft makes money.
Yes, it does.
Minecraft makes so much
almost
money.
Every themed Nintendo console sells out anyways.
But Minecraft sells so much and makes so much money.
Yeah.
Also, Microsoft loves Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like, I know recently that they've really loved Nintendo when talking about wanting, like, to put their stuff on Switch and all that stuff. But then there was, like, a recent letter that came to light that was, like,
I seen that earlier today.
Nintendo from, like, the GameCube era.
Yeah, they're wanting to buy Nintendo.
And they were, like, wanting... It was after that, even, though. It was like they wanted to buy Nintendo. Nintendo laughed in their faces and was like, no. And then they were even like, maybe we can strike up a partnership. We got our Xbox coming. Maybe we can help you out with hardware for the GameCube and make it the best it can be. Like, all that stuff. Like, Microsoft
and then that's when they decided to give Echoes multiplayer.
Yeah, Nintendo was like, you know what? We're taking Halo.
Yeah.
No, but Microsoft just loves Nintendo. They seriously do. They seriously do. It's hilarious. It's wonderful, actually. I really think it's great because we have things like games like Ori come to Switch because of it.
And it's another story that I mention a lot when we were at E3 and, like, 10 feet away from the president of Xbox Live being asked which of his characters would he like to see come to Smash Bros, because it was when Smash Bros Ultimate was being first shown off, and he was like, I would love to see Master Chief in Smash Bros. And I'm like, not the answer I would go with, but okay, at least
I wonder if he knew that Steve and Banjo were both going to end up in Smash, but he couldn't say either of those, so he was like, what else do we own?
Yeah.
Halo. We have Master Chief. That's the one.
Yeah. So yeah, there is that. So Banjo-Kazooie, to the actual topic of the rumor.
Right. That's coming to Switch.
Yeah. And then earlier I mentioned I would really like to see the 360 version with the
yes.
The HD textures, the widescreen, updated controls, a movable camera.
Yep.
I think.
And they fixed the note system in the Xbox version.
Can you think of any other Rare games that you would like to see?
A lot of people are gonna say GoldenEye, but I'm gonna say Perfect Dark.
Yeah, I really like Perfect. Well, see, I think the Perfect Dark came about because they wanted to continue something with GoldenEye, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
So they ended up taking all of the original stuff they made, which is like all the multiplayer maps, and just tweaking them a little bit, and then re-releasing them, and then just like changing the weapons to where they look different and have a different name, but the aiming and everything is still the same, and you're like, this is a different game. But it has its own story and lore and stuff like that. Yeah, so it was a really good game.
It was good. I would love to see Perfect Dark come to Switch. I think it'd be great to and maybe have some updated controls, because N64 games, first-person N64 games, the controls haven't aged super well.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves GoldenEye, and I understand why, but like the controls are pretty dated. So
yeah,
like there's no dual stick aiming at all.
I remember a time when I was so used to Perfect Dark controls that whenever I first played Halo with the dual stick analog controls, I was like, this feels weird. This isn't right. They should have made it like in 64.
Yeah, I remember that too. And then of course, like, of course we adapt and stuff. But I remember dual stick controls like being thing back. Oh, now everyone's gonna know we're old. Sorry, Jesse. But dual stick controls being such a new thing, and I remember we used to call them like Halo controls versus GoldenEye controls. GoldenEye controls were single stick. Halo controls were dual stick. We just called them Halo controls. One big thing.
Another funny thing about Perfect Dark is one of its big marketing things was that it could be played, like there was a version that was playable on the same cartridge with the normal Nintendo 64, and then there's an advanced version that you could play with the RAM expansion. And it was like the original game that you could play without the RAM expansion was literally like a tutorial stage to actually play the game. Yeah. It was it's similar to like the reason they said they gave out the expansion packs with Donkey Kong 64 is because like the RAM would just
like a glitch?
Yeah, the RAM would just keep filling up, and then once it filled all the way up after like 6 minutes or something like that, it would make the game freeze or crash or something. So with the double RAM, instead of having just a teeny bit of RAM left to fill up, now it has to be running for like days or something like that before it'll fill up and crash.
Right.
So like the problem's still there. They didn't fix the issue. They just...
But it stops it from being an issue, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, DK64 would be great to come to Switch as well, because Donkey Kong's 48th anniversary.
There was a time it was on the Wii U eShop for like 3 months with the other Donkey Kong Country games as well.
But Donkey Kong Country, those games.
Do you think there's a
Switch.
rivalry between them and Retro Studios?
No.
Okay.
If I recall, I remember seeing interviews when Retro was working Freeze that they had a lot of reverence for the original Donkey Kong. They said that to get the feeling right, they played through those games a lot, and which is great, by the way. That's how you do it. Right? That's how those games turned out so good on for Retro. But yeah, you have to have respect for your source material, but still do something new, and yeah, it's great.
Link in the chat says Star Fox Adventures.
Sure.
So this is a weird thing.
Dinosaur Planet too.
Yeah, so this is a weird thing. We know Star Fox Adventures came from Dinosaur Planet, but there was also like every time you would look up Star Fox Adventures, there's like an article saying Star Fox Adventures was developed using a like slightly different variation of the Wind Waker engine, like how they
that can't be true.
yeah,
That can't be
because
right.
it goes to the N64 engine for Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, that can't be right at all.
I
Plus,
think
it wasn't developed by Nintendo. Like, do you think Nintendo's sharing out their
no, they didn't
home-built
even
engines?
give
They don't do that.
the Zelda Wii U engine. They didn't give it to Tantalus. Like we seen
Yeah,
what
there's
Twilight
no way.
Princess could have looked like. Aonuma told us this is what Twilight Princess would
They're
look
not
like if
sharing.
we remade it for the Wii U. And then we got Twilight Princess remade for the Wii U, and it did not look anything like that.
And that the GameCube era, that was in a time when Nintendo was conservative with their assets and IPs and stuff than they are now. So yeah, that seems incorrect completely. But it would be cool because like what they did with Star Fox 2, which came to Switch, which was like a totally canceled game. It would be neat. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just going to say this. I do not think it's going to happen, but it would be awesome to see Dinosaur Planet actually released in some capacity.
Yeah, let's just call it Tony.
Just call him Tony. Oh yeah, I mean, no, it is playable technically, and it's weirdly almost 1-to-1 with Star Fox Adventures on GameCube, but it's an N64 game, and it looks like an N64 game, but like the maps are the same, Tricky's there, like
they were just like
so weird.
We don't think this game would sell. Just replace all the characters with Star Fox.
Just with Fox in it.
I think that's what they did with Metroid Prime Federation Force, where like they had an idea for a game. They're like, no one's gonna play this. Make it Metroid.
Just slap the Metroid on there.
Yeah, it's been 10 years since a Prime game. They'll be happy.
Slap the Metroid on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you look up those comparison like there's comparison videos done, or if you just play the game and you know how Star Fox Adventures goes, like it's like living in the freaking Twilight Zone. Like you're like, what is it's the same game, but it's not the same game. It's different, but it's the same. It's like it's uncanny. It's very strange.
Yeah.
It's really cool though.
So I can't think of any other. No, I know the wait. No, that's retro, not rare. I don't know if Nintendo would have. Do you think Nintendo would have Conker's Bad Fur Day? Like, obviously, they originally approved it.
Yeah,
but
maybe. But it's got that M rating.
Actually, yes,
you know?
I do. Because do you remember when the Switch first came out? We had that episode of the podcast where we covered an interview Nintendo had where they said they were actively pursuing more adult themed games.
That's right. So yeah, sure. Conker's Bad Fur Day. I've never played it.
There is a giant poop monster.
There is. I do know about it.
Not the same one as in Dogma, but very similar.
Yes. So it's very inappropriate, but it's got that M rating for a reason.
Yeah,
so
and that began as such an innocent game as well, and then it ended up just becoming.
What was it? Conker or 12 Tales Conker 64?
Yeah,
it was just like
that.
A cute platformer like
yeah,
Banjo
they had him in. Well, Diddy Kong's Racing, like he was put in it as like the cute version of the character before he went through puberty.
Yeah, before he became an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Yeah, I can't. And then when Xbox bought Rare, I kind of understand this, but like there was that period where they were only making Kinect games, and it's like you have this really amazing studio that made all these amazing games, and you're having them make Kinect games. And it's like, yeah, if you're going to pick any studio to make a good game for Kinect, I would go with a studio like Rare, because they know how to make good games. But it's just like, it's almost impossible to make good games for Kinect. So I don't think it was necessarily their fault, but half those people are at Playtonic now as well.
That's true too. So,
yeah, just the Banjo games. Maybe Nuts and Bolts. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Having like the Xbox made
but that was
version
like
of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other games. So the next one, I guess. Was this Spack World? Spackalord?
Space World. Okay, I did want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I sent you a link to this. The Space World 97
Never heard of it. Explain it.
So, all right, I'll explain it to all the lovely people here.
There's
There's
like
a
50
project
videos
that
going.
a project I've been keeping tabs on for a while now. So
We helped a little
if you
on
guys
it.
remember,
Yeah.
I probably didn't really, but so if you guys recall, the Giga Leak happened last year. Tons of wealth of information about old games.
As we
Tons
stated
of Ocarina of
earlier,
Time
that guy
stuff.
borrowed Miyamoto's USB.
Yes, someone did that. So that happened last year, and we thought, wow, this is amazing, and this is going to be as
That
good as it gets.
specifically
So
had
much.
the disk system expansion stuff on it as well.
It's true. So we thought that was as good as it was ever going to get,
Mm-hmm.
and we had just gotten this new wealth of Zelda 64 info, and then the F-Zero cartridge came into being. So what happened is there were some what's called overdump files. So someone had bought an F-Zero development cartridge from an N64 development cartridge, and whatever they were working on F-Zero, they were basically overriding early Zelda development content on that cartridge. But basically the F-Zero data didn't fill up the whole amount of cartridge space.
Development cartridges are like twice the file size as well.
So everything that was left over and not saved over was still there. So we had beta maps, text, the entire beta script for the game, tons of stuff, and tons
Item
of maps
descriptions.
and item descriptions
Story
and
plot.
early icons for items, everything, tons of stuff. And all of that stuff was from a 1997 build of Zelda 64, which we now know as Ocarina of Time. So I'm just going to say this. There have been many, many beta restoration projects over the years.
The Z64 one was like...
That was a big one for a while.
Yeah, that's not 𝗟𝗏 Zelda. That's just the expansion. Nintendo never said anything about adding a Dark World or green hair to Link or anything. It's like, don't call it 𝗟𝗏 Zelda, just call it...
Call it your own mod. It's your own, that's what it is. So, but this is the first time an actual beta restoration project not only has come to fruition, but has actually been a beta restoration, because they've taken those beta assets that leaked and put them back into the game and put Link in there, and they let you actually play around in it, and they put the actors back in. The actors are like things like enemies, stuff, things that move, things like that, right? They put all that back in, and they actually rebuilt, these mod teams rebuilt the Space World 97 demo that you can download and play. And it's incredible that this has come to fruition. Again, I've seen so many beta restorations come and go over the years, and they've all been absolutely speculative and largely inaccurate.
The accurate ones were just like one room.
You get like one room, and
based
you're like,
off a screenshot.
I flipped the icons.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like one room based off a screenshot.
Yeah, but they don't have to go based off of old magazine screenshots because they actually have the assets and the maps.
Yeah.
So
I think there's some animations missing, and then some of the dungeons are missing.
Yes.
But some of the dungeons are still there.
There are, and some of them are really surreal because you have like an early build of Inside the Deku Tree and Dodongo's Cavern, and they're similar to the final games versions, but a lot larger. And that's the biggest thing with these beta maps is it seems like they were just a lot bigger, and Nintendo had just ended up having to scale things down. So you still have like the main room of Dodongo's Cavern with its platforms and giant Dodongo skeleton and bridges overhead, but the room is twice as big.
My theory is that was in the time when they had plans for the actual game and then the expansion, so they were able to make it bigger because whatever was sense. Yeah, that's just my theory though. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so this has finally come to fruition, and it's been released free to download by this wonderfully talented team of modders. The one I've been following who's worked on this is called Zell. And but Hard for Games, Tony has also covered this extensively as well. He's basically like their publicity man for all these projects, right?
He's our publicity guy. Like anytime we want to do a special video about Zelda 64, we'll just be like, "Hey Tony, come on the podcast."
Hey, Tony. Yeah. So actually, you know what? If it's all good with you, Jesse, I'm gonna drop a link to their launch trailer, their release trailer the chat here, but here, I'll just put it here. That's Zell's trailer that they released.
There are maps in the game from the original beta alpha version of the game as well, like the graveyard and, well, maybe not the graveyard, but Kakariko Village. Someone just mentioned Kakariko in the chat. Yeah, that was 100% probably like as soon as they figured out, oh, the N64 is more powerful than we thought. We don't have to base the entire game inside a castle like Super Mario 64. So they're like, okay, let's make a village. And then it was just a Link to the Past, like 2D games, but sticking out of the ground. And they're like, maybe we can try a little bit better, maybe?
The thing is, like, we have a lot of nostalgia for these things, and I find them really fast, incredible, the work that these modders have done. But you have to also realize is that those beta maps are beta maps for a reason. And so, I mean, obviously, they're not necessarily going to be as good as what came about in the final game. Obviously, Kakariko that we got in Ocarina of Time is more visually interesting with stairs and different elevations and a windmill and all the stuff that they added to make it more alive. Obviously, a beta version of that map was scrapped and evolved into something else for a reason, right? So there's that, yeah. But I mean, it's really interesting to see some of the early maps, because even like the really early version of Hyrule, where it's like completely different textures for the grass and stuff, the skeleton is there. You know, like you've got all the paths out of the field and Castletown walls and the river, like they're all in the right places in relation to each other.
Secondary locations mapped out. It was just all of Hyrule Field that was different.
Yeah. But they just like redid Hyrule Field, but they kept the general layout the same, which is interesting. I find that really fascinating. How much they had to scale down, but still kept to their ideas and kept those ideas intact. I find it so fascinating. And actually, Rabbit saying in the chat, we got a good game at the end. This is not to knock Ocarina of Time. It's just one of the best games ever. One of my favorite games ever. But yeah, it's just so fascinating to see that development process, and to be able to actually put yourself into a slice of that is just so cool to see. I really adore it. So kudos to Zell and his very talented team of modders who recreated this.
A really
it's
great
incredible
thing about the project is a lot of the maps and stuff that's in it are maps and locations or dungeons that had never even been revealed in screenshots. Like there was a few screenshots of like the Deku Tree and some demos and stuff, but like that version of Zora's Domain or the Water Temple and all that stuff, I don't think like that version of the Hyrule Field, that version of Kokiri Forest, those had never been in screenshots. Like no one even knew even that those could exist or whatever. So it's got stuff that even people that were 100% devoted to researching the game and the beta, like they wouldn't have even known about it. So it's got a lot of cool stuff in there. So go check it out.
It's just really fascinating to see. So yeah, I mean, go check out Zell's video, and he's got instructions on how to download it and stuff. And yeah, it's worth your time. And if at the very least, if you definitely check out the videos on it, whether it be Tony's video on Hard for Games or Zell's own trailers that he's posted on his channel, it's really great, really well done. So I wanted to talk about that. That's why I just slipped it into the Google.
No, it was really good. So the final news story. What do you want to do with this prediction things? Do you predicting the winners? Or
we could predict
general predictions of what we think is going to happen outside of Zelda, since we already talked about Zelda?
Well, I think Zelda's the main thing we would want to predict outside of that, right? So we could probably just talk about winners.
Yeah. All right. I'm at the website now.
Yeah.
There's a guy falling. It's kind of scary. He's still falling.
Yeah, it's a weird loading screen.
No, he just faded away. He didn't even hit. Good for him. He's like perpetually playing Fortnite.
Yep. Now I've already cast my votes here, but
okay.
But we can go over the categories here and
the nominees.
The nominees, exactly.
Oh yeah, Kind of Funny's in there too. Oh, this is, you know, the website that would, for a while they would, almost any video that we posted, they would make an article on, but the article would, just like the article we read earlier, would say something completely different than what we actually said.
Yeah.
Inverse.com, like the clickbait capital of the internet, are one of the judges for some reason.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. So how do you want to do this? You want to just go down the list here and go over the categories and nominees?
Yep.
All right. Well, first one here, Game of the Year. That's the big category. The nominees are, there's Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, the obvious winner, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. I voted for Metroid Dread. It's my game of the year.
Okay.
It's totally... Jesse, the game came out on October 8th. It came out a month and a half ago. I've beaten it 6 times.
Yeah.
I love it. But do you think it's going to win?
I think, despite it being a 2D game, it is easily the best game on there. The second I would give to It Takes Two, because I played it with my little brother. It has a lot of, it's mostly like playing through a Zelda dungeon that's all dungeon and like 2% combat, but it does a really good job of the stuff that Zelda never seemed to do in its multiplayer game, by making the multiplayer not like, it is 100% forced multiplayer, but it's fun forced multiplayer.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the whole point of It Takes Two, though.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, though. I think there's a good chance Resident Evil will win.
I don't see any of the Resident Evil games ever winning Game of the Year. I think the closest it got was 4, unless 4 did win.
Resident Evil 4
Psychonauts
really
2 would be 𝗬𝗍's vote.
Definitely would be 𝗬𝗍's vote. I know. I think she told me as much, actually.
We got toothbrushes from those people.
We did. It was really weird. I haven't played Psychonauts, but I've heard good. I've watched. 𝗬𝗍 has been streaming the game, and I watched her stream, and the narrative of that game is really interesting. Very, very fascinating game. But I love Metroid Dread. I just got some posters, actually. I just put them up yesterday. I got some Metroid Dread posters that only one of them's not really visible. But it's so polished. It's so good. But maybe this is my bias, coming through.
All right. Some people may hate me, but I am doing my votes live as we go through it for everyone to see.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I already voted, so I can't do that. But Metroid Dread, that's the winner in my heart.
Yeah, that is who I voted for as well. Just tell me who to vote for, and I'll make sure your picks win.
Best Game Direction is the next category. There's Deathloop, It Takes Two, Returnal, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet & Clank Rift. So there's a lot of overlap here. This one, I voted for Psychonauts 2 here, actually. And again, I haven't played it, but just I watched streams of it, and I just think that the narrative and the environments, like all of it, just well put together game. Really fascinating game too. So, but what do you think, Jesse? Who do you think is going to take the winner?
Yeah, well, you see, there's a problem here.
What's that?
All right, now I found it. I thought it would automatically go to the next thing. Usually they have it in like all the nominees and all the lists, but this one you have to like actually click next category at the top. So yeah, Deathloop, It Takes Two, Best Game Direction. I would want to say It Takes Two because it does the forced multiplayer, but as I guess you could use it as a synonym, takes it in a direction that actually makes it fun, which is one of the things that people mostly complain about with multiplayer when it's bad, is that it feels forced. But so they went in a direction with that game that made it actually fun. Psychonauts 2 direction wise, like it's kind of the same but more of the original.
Yeah, I never played the original either, so I just found the whole thing to sort of ethereal, psychedelic, really fascinating.
Yeah, especially the room we were in when we went behind that one door and they showed us the thing, and like the room didn't have like artwork and stuff on it.
It did, but like again, like watching streams of it, like the farther that game goes, the weird stuff gets in kind of a great way. But also it hits you in the feels a bit.
Yeah.
Like
I'm actually gonna go with Ratchet and Clank for the simple.
Okay.
I don't know how true this is. There's a lot of debate going on between the developers of the game and then developers of other games, where they said this game would not be possible without the hardware found inside the PlayStation 5. Not just the power of the CPU and GPU, but the RAM, speed, and they even apparently took advantage of how fast the SSD was, because like rift apart, essentially it would create rifts to where you would be in one room and then like a portal would open, but everything on the other side of that portal would be rendered perfectly. So there's like no loading screens or anything. You just instantly go from, And apparently that's because of how fast the SSD was, that it was able to load all that information that quickly, and it's still having like tons of particle effects and explosions and tons of enemies. So direction wise, I think maybe that would win. So
okay,
I
that's good. That's good prediction.
Yeah, I go for that one. Next category.
Next category is best narrative. So we got Deathloop, It Takes Two. It Takes Two is up for awards. Life is Strange: True Colors, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Psychonauts 2.
Psychonauts 2 would be like the best narrative for someone on acid or something. But no, like that's not exactly acid, but that's a big plot point in the first game. Is like there's there's like a crazy person tripping, and you go inside his brain and his thoughts. That's why there's psychonauts, like astronauts exploring space, but they're exploring the psyche of
your mind.
People, yeah.
Your mind.
I would say Life is Strange.
You know, Life is Strange is almost not really a game and just a narrative. So that makes sense. I say that in jest.
Which did you vote for?
But Psychonauts. I just love the story.
Oh,
there was
there's
this. You go into a guy's brain and then you have to literally
battle. Gonna hate me now?
The boss fight's a panic attack and you have to fight it. And it's like this weird dark shadow. It's just stuff like that, and it hits you in the feels in the right way. I loved it. I loved it.
You know what game should be on here? Shadow the Hedgehog.
Shadow the Hedgehog.
It's like Sonic, but he has a gun.
Year. And it's Sonic. He has a gun and he swears.
It's like, what's the point of running really fast? Like, you can outrun the bullet. I don't.
All right, so the next category is best art direction. So there's Artful Escape, Deathloop, Kena, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet & Clank.
I'm gonna go with Kena because they were really nice to me, and they sent me a copy of the game.
Have you played it through then?
Yeah. It's
nice.
It is the exact game. Okay, you know how we the people from Blossom Tales, I always forget the name of the game, but they were fans of like A Link to the Past and stuff. They made Blossom Tales, and they were kind enough to send us a few copies of it. And they wanted to come on the podcast, but we never had them on for some stupid reason.
Right. Sequel's coming out. We should read up with them.
So in the same way that you can tell Blossom Tales was made by someone who was a fan of A Link to the Past, you can tell Kena was made by someone who is fans of like Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, because even masks and the power that masks have a lot of stuff. And there's even characters in the game that are kind of like cute, weird little forest Koroks, but they like you can tell it's just like, let's take this but change it a little bit, and then take this and change it a little bit. And it's a really good game. So
it's great. I love to hear it. No, Kenna's gorgeous. I think that's a vote. Yeah.
Next best score
best
and music.
score.
Your
So
YouTube
we've
channel's
got
not on here.
I
That's
can only
best
dream.
music.
No. We've got 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗆𝗃, Cyberpunk, Deathloop, Disney's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Near Replicant version 1.22474487139. So why
That's
did they
actually
name it that?
in the video talking about the placeholder dates, and then I gave a few examples of times when Amazon or Walmart or whatever actually leaked the real release date when it was like it wasn't March 30th, 31st, whatever the last of the month day of the month is. It was like March 5th or February 10th, like a very specific date. And the Replicant game was one of the games that they actually did release the date for before it was announced.
Yeah. The Replicant game? You mean Near Replicant version?
Who did you vote for here?
1.22474487139.
That's how I remembered it was this game, because it was Replicant with a bunch of numbers after. But which one did you vote for?
I don't remember, actually, because I might have skipped voting on this one, because I honestly...
I went with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
One.
Don't tell anyone. Just
For
make sure no one ever finds out.
No one will know. Don't worry. It's just you and me here with no one listening to us, so
I can
they'll
tell.
never find
out. Best audio design.
So Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Ratchet & Clank, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal.
I don't know why Returnal's on here. Every time I heard someone talk about Returnal, it was really bad. But again, Inverse is one of the judges, so...
Touché.
So horror games always have really great audio. I haven't played any
true.
of these. Racing games, good racing games always do really great work with the audio. Ratchet and Clank, they had on PlayStation 4, they had a game that looked exactly like the fully CG movie that they released at the same time. So if the score is good enough and the sound design is good enough for a movie and it matches perfectly in the game, then the follow-up to that game that's on a next-gen console, you would have... Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know which one.
I don't know either. But you know what I do know about? That we got a super chat from our friend Nate, aka Nintendo Prime, who said we should have did a collab episode crossover.
Yeah, he messaged earlier and was like, there's this Game Awards stuff going on. Would you want to come on? And I was like, I would, but Daniel and I already... It didn't even occur to me to be like, let's do it together. But it wasn't just... I thought it was other people coming on at the time as well.
That's true. But hey, Nate, thanks for the super chat, man.
Yes.
Also, if you guys don't know Nintendo Prime, he's a good dude. He's a good dude. You should check out his channel.
Yeah.
It's a good channel.
I voted for Resident Evil. I don't know why. Best performance.
Best performance. So we've got...
Joe should be on here for playing the guy in the store owner in Spider-Man. Like that one
Not
NPC.
Sean Spider-Man?
No. The store owner.
Giancarlo Esposito as Anton Castillo, Jason Kelly as Cole Vaughn, Maggie Robinson as Lady Dimitrescu, and 𝗍𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗆𝗃, I'm probably saying this wrong. I'm so sorry, as Juliana Blake, Deathloop. So I have a feeling that Maggie Robinson might win just because the internet has like a word, for lack of better words, like a fetish.
Yeah, but
regarding Lady
Inverse is on the judging team.
But I would hope that Giancarlo Esposito would win this one because he is first of all, he's a brilliant actor.
I clicked him.
He's a brilliant actor, but even I haven't played Far Cry 6, but just the trailers and cutscenes and stuff that I've seen, he has a stone cold brilliant performance, as usual, as you'd expect from
him.
Great actor.
Voice acting sounds the same as him acting, and there's a lot of people that are actors that try to do voice acting and it just sounds like they're reading.
Right. But I think he did motion capture for it as well, so he probably was really like it.
Boyfriend dungeon. Interesting.
What?
The next games for impact.
Yes. Next category, games for impact. So before your eyes, boyfriend dungeon. That's shocking. No, games for impact though is for like pro-social meaning. So, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Life is Strange, True Colors, and No Longer Home. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't played any of these games, so I'm gonna take my vote here. I have not played any of these.
I think there was games that was on other lists that would have been better here, but for impact, so the Life is Strange game, from the reviews and stuff, like it's a newer, different story that focuses on other stuff, but it doesn't really do anything that much different than any of the other Life is Strange things. So if you already know what any of the other Life is Strange games are, then I don't see how this would impact you in any way, because the drama is a little bit different, but it's like Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. Like you know what you're gonna get turned into a wolf. Everything else kind of the same.
Yep.
The water temple's inside a bottom part of an island in the middle of Lake Hylia. The Gorons have the fire temple. Like, yeah, it's the same. I don't know.
Next
like boyfriend dungeon?
I have no idea. I wouldn't even...
That's what impacted me. Like, just from the screen, just from the names alone. It's like, all right, I guess that's the one. Best ongoing.
So you got Apex Legends, Final Fantasy, Online.
Genshin. Because we have
Fortnite, Genshin Impact, and a game you should not vote for because Activision. So it's just down to these four.
I'm going with Genshin because I think we know people in that game.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We'll just
vote
have
for friends.
Vote for friends. So best indie, you have 12 Minutes, Death's Door, Inscription, Kena, and Loop Hero. I want to say Kena.
Yeah, easily Kena. What? No, 12 Minutes is really interesting, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Kena. Yeah, obviously.
Best indie game? I think Kena's.
Are we voting for them because they were nice?
I don't know. Are we? I don't know.
Best mobile game.
So you got Fantasian, Genshin Impact, League of Legends, Wild Rift, Marvel, Future, Revolution, owned by Disney. Disney's, Marvel's, Futures, Revolutions, Pokemon Unite. I also haven't played any of these games.
I would honestly say like Genshin Impact because it so well copies the Breath of the Wild type of game, but adds its own stuff. And the fact that you can play that like 1-to-1 on a mobile device.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Like Pokemon Unite is 100% not the game you would vote for because that's like a watered down.
Well, it's like a
Pokemon
cash grab. But I've heard. I think Cry really liked Pokemon Unite, for example. But I don't know. It doesn't. I don't see that and be like that's the game for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't. I don't know.
I'm going.
It's not my
Genshin.
thing. Community support. You got Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy Night, and No Man's Sky.
Community support. Could you imagine if Activision was on here?
Oh no, I could not imagine that. They should be redacted from any categories, honestly.
I don't think Fortnite should be on here because there's been so many people to sue Fortnite from the community because of them allegedly stealing dances or stuff like that.
Well, that's tricky because under copyright law,
So you cut out there?
Under copyright law, I think that technically you cannot copyright a dance. Which is how Fortnite was able to do that.
Yeah. No Man's Sky
is BS, by the way. You should be able to. It's a work of art.
Did a complete 180 whenever it released. Like the developers and the director of the game is like literally just straight up lied to people. Like one of the biggest things, it was supposed to be like this giant, massive online multiplayer game to where like, but they said the universe, not the world, the universe, because you could travel planet to planet, would be so huge that despite millions of people playing online, the chances were really, really small that you would even come across another player, because the world that you can explore is just that huge.
Which
and then
makes me wonder what's the point then.
no, they did a thing where this player and another player actually got to the same place, and like neither one of them was there, and then they found out like, no, they're just saying it's so large you wouldn't run into another person because you can't run into another person. And then they completely turned the game around and added in all the stuff that they said was supposed to be there. Wow. Final Fantasy 15 online or 14 online kind of did something similar, to where it was like had a bunch of negative reviews, and then they added a huge update to it, and then everyone liked it.
It's good. Listen to the feedback, right? I guess that's kind of what the category is about. Game outstanding for transparency and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and games updates and patches. So, and that makes sense. Yeah.
I have a friend at Game Informer that is always talking about Destiny 2.
I think Josh really likes Destiny as well.
I don't know anyone else that talks about any of these other games. There was like a weird moment in my life and some of the other people's lives on the Discord where we would get together and play Fortnite. That was the only community I was part of.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I never played with you guys a single time.
It was the good old times. And then it took forever to download it when we were at E3 on the Switch.
Yeah, and then the Switch version sucked.
All right, so which one should I try on here?
On best community support, based on what you said, I don't know, Final Fantasy. I've heard good things about Apex as well. But again,
you can't give me two choices. That's too much for my brain.
The choice has to be. It's your vote, Jesse.
I choice must be Final Fantasy because I like 10. And this had an X in it.
Thanks for clarifying. You can copyright a fully choreographed dance, but you can't copyright a specific dance move. Thank you for clarifying that. I knew there was something weird about dance and copyright. I guess I couldn't recall the exact specifics of it. So thanks, Joseph.
Innovation and accessibility.
Presented by Chevrolet.
The only people, the only thing that I know is like Xbox goes out of their way and spends tons and tons of money to make, but not just a single game, basically every game.
Yeah, no, they are actually really great about accessibility.
Yeah, they designed controllers that work really well for people that don't even have hands.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
and that's not on here, so I don't know.
Like I don't know any of these things. I haven't played any of them, so I don't know how any of them.
This is actually the first time I've even had the Veil.
Yeah. Like all of the reviews I've seen of Ratchet and Clank, not a single person mentioned anything about it being accessible to handicapped people or. Like,
what about innovative?
Colorblind.
Would you say there's anything innovative in
yeah,
that game?
That goes along with the thing that I voted for earlier with the using every part of the system as opposed to just relying on the CPU or GPU. Like Far Cry 6, from everything I've seen, is the same as Far Cry 5 and 4 and 3.
Right. Except that it has Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah. Maybe that's innovation. No, it's not innovation.
That's his big selling point. They got this big actor, right?
Like Forza Horizon 5, basically the same as the last Horizon. I don't even know what. Again, half of these I think is because Inverse is a judge.
Should we just move to the next category? You don't have to vote in every category.
I'm gonna vote for Marvel's Guardian. No, they're watching me. I have to vote, or they'll think I'm a coward.
All right. Best VR/AR game: Hitman 3, I Expect You to Die, 2, Lone Echo 2, Resident Evil 4 VR version, and Sniper Elite VR. My vote would go to Resident Evil 4 because I actually haven't played the VR version, but I have seen some videos of it. It looks like it works pretty well. But Resident Evil 4 is just an all-around amazing, just wonderful game.
So two games here: Sniper Elite VR and Resident Evil 4. All of the sniper-based video games that I've seen have all been horrible games. Like, not even with the VR, just like the games in general were just like really cheap, horrible games. Adding VR to it, I don't see how that would make it the best VR experience. But on the opposite end, in an earlier thing, we were talking about how Resident Evil 4 would be the Resident Evil game. If any of them would win a Game of the Year type thing, it would be Resident Evil 4. So taking a game that great and then implementing VR into it, I would imagine that would give you the best VR game. Taking a game that's already amazing and then adding VR.
I agree. Well, I think the reason that works is because you have the foundation of a really good game to start with, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Best
I'm aligned with that.
Action game.
You're Back 4 Blood, Chivalry 2, Deathloop, Far Cry 6, and Returnal. Was Back 4 Blood good? I remember really liking Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it was. I didn't play it, but it was interesting. You could tell it was like, oh, let's do Left 4 Dead, but with new stuff.
But we don't have the licensing rights for Left 4 Dead, so...
I just seen there's 30 of these. Are we going through all of these?
Sorry?
Are we going through all 30 of these?
We don't have to. Again, we can skip categories.
Oh,
we gotta do the next one.
Okay, well, we'll just skip them then. Best action game.
All right.
I will vote for Back 4 Blood, I guess, on this one.
All right.
Yeah.
Best action adventure game. Disney's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. You know where my vote goes. Metroid Dread.
Best
game of the year.
playing.
Metroid Dread.
So I would
Metroid
say
Dread.
Cyberpunk would be the best role playing, but not the best game because it had a lot of issues. But the customization.
Not Monster Hunter Rise.
I haven't played Monster Hunter Rise. I played the
actually,
demo.
I have not played Shin Megami Tensei, so I don't know. But a lot of people really like Shin Megami Tensei. So, what do you guys think in the chat? Natsu says Back 4 Blood lives up to Left 4 Dead hype. That's good to know. Actually, I really liked Left. So
best fighting.
This is
Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
I mean, why not? Why not Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl? Why not?
Yeah, the world needs more Smash clones.
Yeah. Best family game, you got It Takes Two, Mario Party Superstars, Pokemon Snap, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and WarioWare.
There are
I don't think it
3
belongs
out of the
in
5
this
games
category.
are Mario.
That's true. I don't think it belongs in this category, but I would still vote Bowser's Fury because it's amazing. It's wonderful. But I would put it under like adventure game or I don't know. I don't like it has the 3D World, not so much the Bowser's Fury part. 3D World
better than Mario Party Superstars.
I would say yeah, because I didn't hesitate to buy it. 3D World has really great co-op, but I don't think family. Like I see Mario Party and I'm like family game. That makes sense, you know. Excuse me, pardon me, but I would still say out of these games, they're all really good games, but 3D World plus Bowser's Fury that's gonna be my vote.
I'm skipping this next one because I've never heard of any of these.
Yeah, Deadly Creature in the chat says Party is the only one that's actually a family game, and I agree. But I would say the best of these games is still 3 and Bowser's Fury. Best sim strategy, whatever. Best sports racing game, nah. Multiplayer game, nah. Content creator of the year, I'm like, who are these people? I've heard of Dream.
Believe it or not,
cheating.
Our pal Greg won the very first. I think it was Gamer of the Year at that point instead of Creator of the Year.
Right. I just like I see the rest. I see these. I'm
I
like,
don't know any
who
of
are
these.
Graf is really close to Greg. You could
He looks like a bad
similar.
timeline, an evil timeline version of HMK.
It's dark HMK.
Yeah. Like if he never
Yes.
discovered Kingdom Hearts and Zelda, this would be him.
That's him. There we go. Best debut indie, which I feel like is same as best indie. These are almost the same, almost all the same nominees as well. But I want to say Kenna as well for that one.
Oh, best and most anticipated game. Easily Breath of the
Most
Wild.
anticipated game, sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild's got to be the win. I know Elden Ring looks exciting. God of War, sure. Horizon, also great. Starfield exists. I have no idea what the hell Starfield's about. Other than that, Bethesda is making it. So yeah, Zelda. It's got to be Zelda. Esports game.
Yeah, I don't even
Well, I'm
know.
gonna say not the first one because screw Activision.
Smash Bros should be on here because Nintendo actually announced their partnership to make it like an official esports tournament thing.
True. Under best esports athlete, one of the guys, his nickname is actually Simp, and that's hilarious. That's really funny. They've got like their names,
Never heard of any of these
and then
people.
like their nickname. I don't know who any of these people are, but it's just hilarious that you got Tens, Simple, Collapse, Showmaker, and Simp. He goes by Simp. You've heard of Chris Lear, but you may know him by his by his name, Simp. I just find that really funny. Sorry, I don't know the guy.
We actually have a friend who manages an esports team. You remember the one that came up, had all the Zelda tattoos and stuff on her? She's working at an esports thing now.
Oh, Lisa. Yeah. I think Miss Ganda Chris is also involved in, but I don't remember the details exactly. I have to double check her page. Esports team. I don't know
she
who
was
these
at the
people
Nintendo
are.
World Championships. So if anyone does,
True.
if you're at the World Championships, then
Also, esports coach. No idea who these people are. Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Any of this.
Esports events? I don't know. Apparently, I'm not cool enough to. Thanks. That's the end of Game Awards categories, I guess. So, how about Metroid Dread for Game of the Year, huh?
Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, so no Zelda mailbag, correct?
We didn't really get any new questions this week, so unless anyone in the chat wants to sign off, but I think we're probably good to wrap things up. What do you think? Jesse, did you mute yourself? Are you muted?
Yeah. Am I?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'll look through the chat really quick just to see if anyone does have one.
All right. Joseph asked, would Age of Calamity be qualified as an action game? I would say so.
Yeah,
But it
more
really
action than a normal Zelda.
I mean, the premise of it is pretty much all combat, right? That's the warrior style of gameplay. So I'd say it's action. Yeah. Deadly Creatures says, currently streaming Metroid and it's fantastic. It's a masterpiece. I gotta agree. Big agree.
All right. Someone give us a really good question. Be our final question to end the show on.
Boxers or briefs? Boxer briefs. I'm not into them tidy whities, but I don't like them baggy boxers either. You gotta get them comfy boxer briefs. Gotta get them Lululemons. That's my answer. I like comfy undies. They asked. Okay.
Okay. Quick correction. I have seen people in the comments of my videos say this. So they spell it Age of Clams. It's Age of Clams, like a clamshell.
Right. Yeah. But also aging clam entity is another acceptable.
Oh, will there be another Gamescast before the Game Awards? This is perfect to end on because next week we're having, speaking of Age of Clams, which is how I spelled it when I promoted the podcast, Age of Clams. We're having Joe, who voiced Daruk and Inobo and the shopkeeper in Spider-Man, and a bunch of other of your favorite stuff. He's coming on next week to talk about because we had him on when a little bit after Age of Calamity originally released, but not many people had played it, and we didn't really want to spoil it. But this time, we'll be talking about everything. So look forward to that. And then we decided 10 minutes into this podcast that we wouldn't have a Gamescast the following week. We would just do a live stream of the Game Awards.
Yep.
And then I guess we'll spend like 10 minutes after wrapping up our thoughts, or maybe we'll spend the boring trailers wrapping up our thoughts. Waste no time. Just as soon as you see a Vin Diesel game, just start talking about Zelda.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we go, Daniel, where can people find you? And can you let people know about this special video that will possibly be uploading tomorrow that you were so kind to record audio for on my channel?
Well, that's a great video about the most powerful Zelda characters. And like, I don't know if I need to explain it further than that. Just think about like who would be the most powerful characters in all of the Zelda lore, not just like any one specific game, but like across the whole. So that's the topic of.
Even though I wrote it, I was surprised at how high Greg ranked, and I'm the one who wrote the script, and I still couldn't believe it.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it truly is.
It started as a top 10, and then it became 21. A top 21 most powerful characters. But there's a lot of very strong, powerful characters in Zelda. People, magic powers and stuff like that, right? So it's look forward to that whenever Jesse decides to upload that one. Otherwise, you can find me all my social medias, everything at 𝗏𝗃𝗃 𝐶APTBURGERSON. I just streamed Breath of the Wednesday this morning, but every Wednesday is Breath of the Wednesday where we stream Breath of the Wild. And Saturday nights, we've been streaming through Metroid. We're in the middle of Metroid Prime 2, actually. And otherwise, I do videos about Zelda stuff. I actually recently released the 3rd installment of Dungeon Design in Twilight Princess, where we looked at the Lakebed Temple. Maybe go check that out, because I think that video turned out very good. Very, very good. So, great dungeon. I love that dungeon. I'm a water temple fan also. So, yeah, I'm working on a few projects, so if you like Zelda stuff, if you like listening to me talk, well, not sure why you do, but I have a channel you can do.
And what about that beautiful shirt you're wearing?
Oh my gosh, this one and those stickers on my shelf there, you mean, as well? Look at that. Yeah, burger merch exists there, so yeah, we've got Twitch, YouTube, everything. I've got links in any of my video descriptions. You can find merch, you can find my Discord, you can find everything. It's all there. But you can also find me in Jesse's Discord as well, where I regularly say hi in the snaky room. So absolutely.
That's been going on. That's literally been going for years, and the only thing people say in that chat is hi. And I don't even think it's in the rules to where you have to say hi. It's just a known courtesy.
I think it says in the chat description that if you say anything other than hi, delete it.
Oh, a review here can confirm by Natsu. Breath of the Wednesday is a good time. It gives you a great excuse to not clean.
I'm happy that I could give you something to procrastinate to.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Someone asked, do you have Twitch? I'll follow you there. Yes. Links to everything. Everything from Daniel, everything from our other co-hosts, 𝗏𝗵𝗲 and the Geek Apprentice, and myself.
Everything.
Started getting another call there. Yeah, links to everything. The Discord, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitches, the YouTube, like their individual YouTubes, everything. Just find their name and then you can, just literally it's all there. I spent a whole 2 minutes organizing everything.
And it's appreciated.
Yeah. Everything on mine. Look forward to that top 10 21 video that's coming out soon. It's special.
It is. Just like you.
And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you all for the great support on the recent videos. Usually I have like 2 videos a week and the podcast maybe, but I've tried to upload a different video every day this week. And it's been going good so far, but that is a lot of long nights. Because I don't know about you, Daniel, but it takes me about 10 hours to edit a typical 10-minute video. That's not including the writing or the editing the audio, just editing the video. So like 1 hour per minute of video edited, and then just add like 2 or 3 more hours for the scripting and the recording the audio and all that. So
depends what kind of video. I find some take longer to edit than others. So
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's everything. 𝗵𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗁𝗍. Everything is 𝗵𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗁𝗍. Everything is 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗃. Thank you all for watching. This went a little bit longer because Tubes wasn't here to smack us and get us back on topic. Yeah, so
and happy Thanksgiving to all you Americans.
Yes.
Canadian Thanksgiving was last month, but everybody else. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Happy late Thanksgiving to everyone else. And I guess that's it. We'll see you guys next week with Joe